Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'll open the meeting up. I got 6:04, so public comment. Do you have any public comment? No? Okay, and the next thing on the agenda is a letter from Gerald Smith and Caroline Ballard, thank you letter. We also got another thank you letter as well. And let's see, where are we here? The letter says, this one's from, let's read, excuse me for a minute. Too many pieces of paper. No, not this one. Already made that mistake once. It just happened to be somewhere. On the back of
I don't know what you're looking for.
I'm looking for the letter that Mr. Smith and Ms. Ballard sent. I sent it out to everybody.
Yeah.
I'm finding it on my phone. But anyways, it was appreciation for the work. It was done up there to the Beam Road. We got things done up there, and they were very appreciative of that. Let's try this right here. That's Scott. What happened to the other one? Anyways, I'm going to read the one from Scott Griswold that came in today. I got it this morning. We would like to thank Hyde Park Selectboard for their commitment to the road crew and perform the ditches on Beam Road within a few days of our attending the board meeting. It seems at times that with approximately 2 years of discussion on the project that progress was supposedly being held up. It was great to see this feeling was not coming from the select board, as all 4 board members in attendance agreed to the work being begin immediately. There is no doubt that if the work had not been performed, we would have lost the road with the rains that occurred within days of the work being performed. The work completed was done exceptionally well. Also, the road crew members performed this work, were extremely cordial whenever we needed to get through. Again, thank you as well as those who completed the work. And Scott, Christine Griswold. You have that letter? Did you bring your
You want me to my email?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it in here. I've got about 800
Oops.
emails going by it.
Select board. Wrong folder.
Just, right. Change folders and see if we know the difference.
Okay, Caroline and I have prepared a letter thanking the select board and the highway department for the ditching done on Beam Road currently. We think it will help the washout situation a great deal. The letter also points out that we are still waiting to proceed with officially extending the road to the current turnaround. We would appreciate it if you could present this letter to the board in whatever the proper manner is to do so. Hopefully, it will be entered into the official records somehow. Thank you again for your help in this matter, and it's from Jerry. And then it goes on to say, we wanted to thank the select board for agreeing at the September 13 meeting to proceed with the previous agreed upon ditching on the Beam Road. We especially want to thank Roland and Brian for making the additional effort, making phone calls, coming to our home to discuss the matter in more depth. We were also impressed with the highway department and their efficiency once the project was started. Last September, there was a stormwater plan submitted to the Summit Engineering for ditching and upgrading the section of the road from the Clark mailbox to the current turnaround. It was stated at that time that Ron would be working on the final road survey and laying out the new highway. Unfortunately, that didn't happen and resulted in us once again having to repair our section of the road starting at Sherry Heckler's home due to the washout from the spring runoff. We have had to do this numerous times over the years. In visiting the town website, we did not see any reference to the Beam Road on the latest town projects task list dated on 7/8/22, or a current 2022 work plan for the ditching. We were concerned, we were looking at yet another winter without work being done, which is why we felt we had to press for action. It appears to us that ditch work was done as specified in the Summit Engineering Plan, and we hope that it will result in solving the current washout problem. Hopefully the rest of the plan can be accomplished in the near future. Thank you again for your help in this matter, Gerald Smith. And Carolyn Ballard. So those are the two letters we got on Beam Road up there. The letters are like this, so it's hard for me to read them even with the glasses. So anyways, let's see. Next is Ken Harvey.
You're all right?
Well, the mic.
Yeah. You're the mic.
Yeah, a little bit closer or loud, one or the other. One of those works.
Get it there. We go.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for putting me on the agenda and for a little time to kind of discuss what we think might have been an error. Reason I'm here is my understanding is that you voted not to pursue the purchase of the land from Vermont adjacent to the town gravel pit. And I guess some of us think that may be an error, and I think maybe a little more investigating should be done in regard to that. Whether the decision comes out later on the same or not, I just think it's a little early in this game to just call it quits on that. And I'll tell you why. In 1973, the town pursued buying the Emerson property, which is 38 acres, across from the pit. And there was a number of concerns that the board had and some of the neighbors had. And so we had done a presentation back then, and ironically, I was able to find the 1993 stuff that we had done back then with all the questions and the projections of where gravel would be cost-wise. And I have the chart, and I brought these, I'm going to hand them out to you in a moment. But we had a chart back then. We were buying gravel from Benny Emerson and from my older brother Melvin. And we were paying at that time $1 a yard for gravel. And the competitive price, if you was buying it commercially back then, was around $235, $240 a yard. So we did a projection, ironically, that goes out to 2025 of where the price of gravel would be. And at that time, we had projected in 2025 would be close to $2 a yard for banker and gravel, which is $2 a yard. So the other thing I did was I got all the prices of all the pits in the area here 3-4 days ago. We have a pit ourselves up in Eden, and we're $7 a yard for banker and gravel. Ken Davis in Hardwick is $7 a yard for banker and gravel. The Walker Pit in Eden, owned by Menashe's, is $11.20 a yard. Natives don't have banker and gravel as of yet. They're probably gonna have, Chip Percy has bought Natives, and they're gonna truck out Lowell.
Right.
And, but the time you add the trucking in and the processing, you're gonna wind that being more. Percy Pit and Lower, you know, if you go there and get it, it's $12 a yard. Gravel construction in Mocha is $10.35 a yard, and Grimes Pit is $10.50 a yard. So if you take that in comparison where we thought we'd be 20 years ago and where we are today, the graph kind of just shoots right up. So if you take in consideration where we think petroleum products are gonna be, what they're costing now, what it costs to operate a pit, I think it's pretty fair to say that you're probably gonna be looking at 4, maybe 5 times the number of today's price in 15 or 20 years, which puts that at a pretty substantial amount of money for
Value, yeah.
Howard, ironically, we was up to Howard's house here, well, Dave was there, and they had a summer party up there, and I was talking to Howard and thanked him for selling that to the town, which I thought was a pretty reasonable price. And he said the only thing that was, he wasn't sure, but he wanted to keep out 2 acres for his granddaughter, which I think he has, and I think he made the board aware of that. I'm not sure of that. But it was the Ernie Furlan lot, which was a separate lot anyway, and I don't think he ever would have taken gravel out of there. But there's 23 acres. So the 23 acres, gravel or any earth material is 1,600 yards per foot acre. So for every foot you take out of an acre, so in 23 acres, that's 38,800 yards per foot. If you go down 40 feet, and the reason I took 40 feet is when we did the pit across the road, we actually hired a company out of Barrie to do borings, and we went down 40 feet to see what material was. The best material was up near McFarland Road, and that's kind of proved itself out as we've taken material out of there, or the town has. So if you do the calculation, that means that there's 1,472,000 yards of gravel on this parcel of property. So even today's price at $7 a yard, you know, you're putting $10 million worth of aggregate there.
Now, you based that, Ken, don't mean to interrupt you, but you based that on the 23 acres?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, keep in mind, we got the setbacks from the properties and the roads and stuff like that, so I don't know if you'll.
Yep, and how do you allow for the setbacks? In 1966, Bill Patch, who was road commissioner at that time, was going to take out and looked at taking out the town road that goes up through to the cemetery and making that a nice gradual grade up through there, which I think you could still do, and that would lower the profile of the pit area if you did that pit on that side plus the town pit. So you could get that material out of the road, which is same material, very usable, very, very good material.
But following, you gotta remember, we have a DRB here, and you've adopted nowadays, not 1960 anymore. The town has adopted bylaws that don't allow anything greater than 8%. So,
Well, no, it'd be way less than 8%.
well, then you're not getting very far, Ken. So setbacks, especially 1966 setbacks, good to connect. Trust me, I'm a huge proponent of this as well. It's just a matter of, and this is a great part of democracy, is we can talk about it.
Yep,
But with setbacks today versus 1960 or 1970 setbacks, you have 5 house lots around there. Your property setbacks are 250 feet, so you take 250 feet on this side, 250 feet on this side, 250 feet on this side. You've necked down that area quite drastically.
change the setbacks. You guys are in charge of the planning commission. So you tell the planning commission, this pit doesn't have to happen instantly, because you've got plenty of material. So you've got probably 10 or 12 years.
But it
15 years.
can't happen instantly anyways. There's a 25-year hole on it.
Yeah, and that's fine, because I think you've got adequate material where you are. The problem is gonna be, where's the town gonna be in 25 or 30 years? And let me tell you why that's a concern. If you get on the needles and just park down there, you will see the town of Essex, Essex Junction, Colchester, Underhill, Jericho, Westford, all hauling material from Memorial County, because there's none down that way. So I don't think I think you need to have the foresight to look out 25 or 30 years, because we bought this pit in 1993. So, I mean, that was some time ago. The other thing, Matt, that I think it does, there's a rec field up there that been quite a substantial amount of money put into it. By having this, it prolongs the life expectancy of that rec field where it currently is. So I think you're kind of doing two things if you pursue this. So the setbacks, I would go to the planning commission and say, this is what we're thinking, this is what we want to do. I would call the DRB in, I'd talk to them about the same thing. I would talk to all the neighbors and say, we're gonna buy this. We're gonna plant, as soon as we buy it, we're gonna plant a hedgerow all the way around it. And in 20 years, that hedgerow's gonna be so big, you aren't gonna see it anyway. So I think there's some things you can do to mitigate, but what the concerns will be up there. But let me, you don't need to read these now, but I'll hand these out. These were the kind of the questions and answers, you know, why are we buying a pit? Is there gonna be Act 250 concerns? And the Act 250, I'm not saying it's gonna be a walk in the park, but with municipalities, it's way easier than it is if you're an individual. And however you wish, but Grenier Engineering did all the Act 250 and the work on our current pit. Charlie's retired, but John's doing it now, and they have all the records of everything we've done on that pit down. And I think if you do a little PR work ahead of time, there's a, one copy.
That's how it wants to know. What's how it wants
Oh,
the property now.
And
250. 250 went down in price.
three there.
He went down in lots of land.
It was priced, so it's a million, what?
And here's the,
Oh, no, is there an extra one?
Oh, just a second, we got an extra one here?
Matt, do you have two?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I can't count.
Yes. 250. And it's gone down in, according to mine, is 22.5.
It is 22.5.
Yeah.
It's 22.5.
and these are the pricing from the pits, and those are current, today pricing.
Like it is
And I'll
11,000.
give these to anybody who wants to look at them also.
Thank you.
So that's just something for you to look at, is what we were in 1993, what our thoughts, concerns were, and there were some mistakes in there, some of our assumptions were
We're missing
wrong,
one.
such as the price of material. The other thing we proposed, just 2 acres at a time would be open. You can't run the pit with just 2 acres open at a time. Time you do your stockpiling, do your side slopes, you need more room than that to do that. And I think we took the liberty of doing that, and I think our permit may be a little bit limited, but we, you know, as long as nobody complains and you run a kind of a neat show, it's okay. So anyway, my understanding of, well, two more points I'd like to make. Number one, I think the warning was to buy the property up there. It wasn't saying to authorize the select board to do it, it was just to buy it.
Yeah,
So I think the voters have voted in the affirmative to buy that property. So I would make the point that I think we should pursue that, or the board should follow through with that sentiments, because voters gave their blessing to it, so if they did, I think they may have a good appreciation of what we need down the road. So that's one point I'd like to make, and the second one is under Robert's rules, I believe any board member voting in the affirmative can ask for reconsideration at the next regular scheduled meeting, which is tonight. So I would ask any of the four who voted negative, and I think it was unanimous, to make that motion when they feel appropriate. And I would also like to see if there's any, if you don't mind, Brian, not to intervene, but see if any of the other, we brought some
Sure.
Some other board members.
There's a few things that have changed, Ken, and maybe I'm speaking, I'm new to the board, so again,
Yeah.
it's good education.
Yep.
But it was brought to the town 25 acres.
Yes,
It was not brought to the town that Howard's gonna reduce the land size.
Yep.
So us as the board, Howard reduced it by 2.5 acres. The price still stayed the same.
Yep.
The other thing was the town voted on taking the money, Ron, you may have to help me with this, but from a town loan. Howard has not wanted to sign that agreement. Howard wants the loan to go through his process. So that changes for the town voters.
sure.
I was with Howard this afternoon.
Yep.
And, I can't quote Howard word for word because we're on television, but he said, I don't care if the town buys this property or not, and I can get 3 times the amount. I'm charging the town for it. He is doing the town a favor. Says to me, he said, I feel I'm gonna help the next generation and the generation after that. As far as money, he says, I want it over a 10-year period. So $25,000 a year, that's a pretty darn savings for the town.
And that's what we were paying on the Emerson pit, was 25,000 a year.
Is that what the deal, again, okay.
Yeah, it was 20 years though.
Yeah, 25,000, because it's half.
But I haven't heard this one.
And,
But we hadn't heard 10 years.
No, we haven't.
This was new to us.
This is
Well,
new
it was
to
brought to
us.
us- It was
Okay.
brought to us 5
Yeah.
years. So that was good,
Yeah.
that was 5 years,
Yeah.
doubles the number.
Right.
So,
Well, and I'm just gonna say, and part of our problem is it keeps changing. And that's part of what we were all uncomfortable with. Because it was smaller, and then, well, when you take all the setbacks, and it's 25 years before you can do anything with it anyway. So, and then so it was just like, okay, wait, too many things are changing. Coming in and saying, oh, well, 25,000 a year for 10 years is like, well, that's a different thing.
Not what we were told.
Yeah.
And it'd be a good investment for the town. You know, just the price of that land up there, just the price of the town.
well, yeah,
And put in perspective today. Say this is 20 years ahead. I wanna see Matt Moore and them, they had that Pickard mill with that piece of machinery to tear it up.
you're gonna be fine with it, because he's gonna be building one down below it, if that's what he has to do.
That was the plan
But
originally.
that was an agreement, Dave.
Because I'll
when it
tell you
first
what,
was
Dave,
bought.
you were sitting on the other end of the
It
table
was
when I
bought
was sitting
for a
over
gravel
there, you were
pit.
pointing at me, telling me I was crazy.
But
So,
It was bought for a gravel pit.
don't,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
but there's federal money put into that, so,
Uh,
right, Ken?
Well, you have no restrictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And there, remember you denied the lights, there was gonna be lights in there.
Okay, Bill, okay.
We pushed for that.
I'd like to ask the board to reconsider it.
And that's the best part about democracy, we can discuss that. However, again, I deal with Act 250 for a living now, and I just went through it. There's no more just going to get a gravel pit. You have to have a multi-sector permit now. Do you know what a multi-sector permit takes?
And look
It's
what
not the
Marshall's
same.
going through. Look what Marshall's going through. They've had that permit over there for years.
And Eric can tell you he's on the DRB. They just had to go through the motion, go through issues with Harrison's pit, right there with neighbors that don't want the pit there. So not in my backyard situation.
Yeah, but Rolling, didn't Morrisville cause that problem because they let their permit lapse and they had to start over?
Oh.
If
I can't
somebody
answer
done
that
it
question, to be
somewhere-
honest with you, but I know they're fighting a lot of, I've been done over there 3 years, and
If
it was a year
somebody
before
done
I
their
started.
homework, I don't
Like-
think you would have been in that mess.
But we might be in that same boat. So we can do our research. We can talk about this. We can go further. But to get an Act 250 permit for that and run a pit out of that, you know, we're talking about $250,000 purchase. And if you start talking about your setbacks narrowing, because some of those are state setbacks, not, and like, I think there's 5 wells around that. That's one thing we have at the ball fields. You don't have 5 well setbacks. Every one of those properties has a well. So you have a well setback on every one of those properties. That's not a town ordinance thing. That's a state ordinance. So we gotta start looking at that well shields and start necking those in. Us as a town, are we willing to pay for 5 wells? Are we willing to pay for 5 new mound systems? Are we willing to pay for that stuff? So we do have to look at that.
And
we
the
have to look
Davis
deeper at that.
property adjacent to it too, we don't know what's gonna happen in the 25 years.
That's concerned.
What's that?
Charlie Davis's field is conserved, nothing will ever change.
Okay.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Right,
And
that's all right.
not to below the active 50, but we just got an active 50 permit for a gravel pit in Eden. We got it 3 years ago. I have,
But on the existing pit,
no, absolutely not.
okay,
All right, me.
that's all, okay,
And I have 12 residents in a school across the road.
yeah, you do.
And I mean, it took a little time, it took a little money, but, again, if you.
Rough numbers, Ken, what kind of money?
On my pit up there, I probably spent $25,000 to get the permit. However, we spent probably a year talking to the neighbors, talking to the school board, talking to the town of Eden, who subsequently has become our best customer. And the town of Eden, David and Rolly and I met to identify gravel pits, 3-4 years ago? And this was the highest priority one. The Litwilder pit, which never came to fruition, that Howard was trying, was second. But we had my pit up in Eden on that list of possible sources of gravel. Well, the town of Eden heard that the town of Hyde Park was going to not only buy gravel, was going to buy the pit, which was not true. But once they heard that rumor, they became a pretty good loyal customer. So that tells you a little bit about the availability and the desire to have good access to gravel. So anyway, again, the reconsideration is just to buy us some time, just to look into it, just to take into consideration the setbacks.
25,000
to-
over 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And the
That's a
25,000
big-
percent does,
yeah, that's-
make it more appealing again for the board.
Okay.
That's not always presented to the board.
no, I
Right.
understand, and if you take a look, and just run your numbers, let's say, Matt, it's half that. Let's say you wind up with only, 12 acres that you can get gravel out of. Run your numbers at, 36,000 cubic yards per acre. We'll say it's 10 acres. That's 380,000 cubic yards. That brings your number down to probably 65, 70 cents a yard. And look at what we're paying, or places are charging for gravel currently.
How long ago did Howard start that furling pit up there?
Who's this Russ? When did they burn out? It was right after they burned out.
It'd be in the
time
70s.
ago. He bought that right after the barn.
Yeah, right after the
So
fire.
that was
He
late
said
70s,
Yeah, early 70s.
years.
75.
And look how long that pit's been going, and that's just right beside ours, and they keep going down and keep going down,
And
and
so-
they find more rock and more rock, Ken.
So the town can do, but they're after the sand. They're not looking for gravel. They're looking for concrete sand, hair sands. And we can also go down further also. The lower end of the rec field is, we did, I think, around 25 or 30 borings up there. And we had a sample bag for each boring. And they were up to the garage, but they got thrown away. But the lower end where the ball fields are is the sandiest, finer sand, and it gets coarser as you get towards the road. And that's where the best gravel is, and if you take a look now where they're digging out, you'll in fact see that's the best gravel. But Rolly, a point you just made a moment ago, that whole parcel was bought for a gravel pit. And the agreement was we'd do the rec field to the point that the town needed the sand, and then the rec field would go away and maybe go down to the lower level. So that is the plan. However, if you can extend the use of the rec field for another 25, 30, 40, 50 years, I think that's a good thing. So anyway, that's,
Did the select board do a financial analysis, or just say no because they're uncomfortable with some of
The terms changing, yeah.
Every time we talked to him, everything changed.
So not a financial analysis at all?
Well,
The
that,
financial was not 10 years, 25,000, I can tell you that, so.
Yeah.
but
Well,
that was a big
well-
part of it, and then with the setbacks and permitting, we didn't feel the town's ever gonna get a permit.
I'm just
Well,
curious
plus,
where,
well,
like,
we
with
were going to-
worst case scenario,
Yeah.
worst case assumptions.
We
How is that financially?
We can.
Still was a good deal, and seems like you're willing to investigate further at least.
Especially at 25, at 10 years for 25, that
Because we're
changes.
waiting to settle on the
I
deal
mean,
before
you're
we
young,
board
you're
it, so we
young,
don't
and in this
really know
town,
it's
it's,
there.
if it's double or triple that, I mean, what's it gonna do to your taxes? You already pay a lot of money in taxes here. I pay a lot of money in
Yeah,
taxes
well,
here.
I'm hearing a lot of.
And look at the age of this room.
Yep.
And you and me are the only one under 40.
Hey.
Well,
That-
Excuse me.
And I'm
You're on
at
camera.
that ceiling right now. But it's an honest truth. Who can afford to live in this town? And that's the reason why I came to this board, to protect my constituents. And that's what it comes down to is, can I afford to live in this town or not? And that's what I want. I want me and him to be able to afford to live in this damn town. Because right now, the only people living and moving into this town is, if you go look down on Brook Road, is $2 million homeowners.
So to your point, in 20 years from now, would you rather be paying 65 cents a yard for gravel because you bought it way back, or $28 a yard for gravel?
If that can be used, but I don't want 5 years of lost revenue on the tax in that property.
There's no
Or,
lost revenue if you got the property.
If you get the
well,
property,
who's paying for taxes right now?
Howard.
Who's paying for the taxes right now?
Howard.
Right? Or it would be the next landowner, or it'd be
Yeah.
whatever. And if you already have a 25-year hold on it, and then we already have the neighbors, which I'm sure Eric knows, the neighbors right now don't want a gravel pit moving forward in some aspects. I just don't.
You can't say that, because I talked to Jeff Emerson this week, and he's at the same boat that we are. He said, I can't believe the select board let that deal go through. And besides that, for revenue, I don't know what it is, but I was told today that the Tim Stearns will continue renting that.
That 2 acres.
Tim pays, I think,
The
$1
fireman?
per week. Like Tim pays Howard is
That was never
Wait.
part
the
of
agreement.
the
It's
land.
like $100
Hey, guys,
million.
wait, we need one person at a time to talk here, so.
One of the boys lived there, and he got killed, and Howard bought the trailer and that 2 acres, and he's keeping that out to build a house for his granddaughter. But that was never part of the farm when he first bought it.
Yeah, it wasn't an initial.
You know, Ken, I hate to say this, but I'm gonna.
But,
I've been to classes 10 years ago. And I don't know what's gonna happen in 25 years because of this silica that's coming around. We might not even be using sand to do our roads. The state has stopped it now. So who's gonna, what are we gonna do with the sand if we buy it back? Who knows?
Yep. and-
I'm just saying,
No,
who
no,
knows?
I understand, but most of the sand you'll find is about center of the pit down to the ball field. This part that we're talking about, if you look and take a look at it, get on the entire.
I know, I've been there.
And it's really very nice, desirable, crushable gravel. So you may not be able to use sand, but you're not gonna be blacktopping any more roads, so you're gonna have to maintain the ones that you have, because you can't afford to put more blacktop in.
And I'm 100% on board with bureaucracy and opening it up, myself. And running the analysis need to run by the town.
Yeah,
However,
that's all right.
it needs, on Howard's end, it needs to be a clear thing, because we can't protect the town and say the town voted on 25 acres, and then if we do turn around and buy it, and all of a sudden it's short acreage and it's a different purchase agreement, that's our only standard.
Now, let me make this thing here, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'll go ask Howard and I'll get back to you.
No, wait,
We'll
Yeah.
ask Howard. I think that's half the problem. There's too many people involved.
No,
Talking
That's
to
right.
Howard,
That's
getting
right.
different information from
that's
everybody.
that's a board thing.
but when we said 25 acres, that was before Howard wanted to take that 2 acre piece.
Again,
Howard may still sell that to us for $10,000 an acre for 23 acres.
and that helps, again, that helps, but that's not what got brought back to the board. So that's where it's,
yeah, but the way that reads, Dave, it's not 25 acres, it's more or less. That's the way every
Yeah.
deed goes.
Right.
And,
But I'm just saying that,
but $10,000 an acre is not any money today. We bought the last year and a half, we bought 100 acres at $10,000 an acre for farmland. So,
I'm not disagreeing.
and I was listening to you about, you want to be able to live in Hyde Park, but it didn't bother you any to get the town of Hyde Park in debt $1 million in 1 year.
no,
This select board did that,
that's a different, that's a,
1
You're not
year.
in debt.
that's a different.
I know it's different, but And they don't wanna spend $275,000 for something that's gonna make money, but it didn't bother them to buy an excavator that's sitting up here, and today they were digging ditches with the old backhoe. So, I know it's different, but still, that gravel pit is for nothing. If Howard would sell it to me for that, I'd buy it tomorrow.
There you go.
But he won't sell it to you.
But yeah, Howard can get double and triple for that. Howard doesn't care if you buy it or not.
That's what he told me. He said, I'm doing this as a favor for the town, so I'll not sell it for
But
you.
he's only
And other
doing it
people.
because he lives in Hyde Park.
So the only request is that we reconsider it and we investigate and we get the details. And I think it certainly is a board's purview to do that. You know, if the board wanted some help from somebody outside or whatever, then the board asks for it. But other than that, it's a board that needs to do the digging on this and get the answers.
What we had been attempting to get to over many, many months was a purchase and sales agreement.
Yep.
And then once we had a purchase and sales agreement, we were gonna go ahead and bore it, so then we could do an accurate financial assessment on it. So that we'd know what really, because everybody thinks they knows what up there, but you never really know until you get there, right? So we were gonna go ahead and do that. But we haven't been able to get to a sales agreement with Howard, and it was always on, things couldn't get done and they just couldn't get done, and then he wants to do for his granddaughter, which is perfectly okay. And again, and the things kept changing, so I think we're just sort of like, okay, with the world continuing to change, it did not feel as though, even though he may telling you, and it may be that he has good intentions and he wants to help the town, but sitting here, it didn't feel that way at all when people keep moving the ball. So we just said, okay, let's, we give up. Okay. So, and again, saying, we never heard anything about 25 for 10 years. And that would be nice if Howard wanted to come to us and say that, then that's, I think that certainly we would all, I'm willing to go, I'll reconsider my vote if that's real, but if it keeps moving around like this, we're gonna go right back to no, because it's just, you can't keep moving it.
Has the board met with Howard?
Yeah.
A couple of times, yeah. And that was way back, and it was things that he needed to get done that have never gotten done, or when they got done, it was different than what was gonna be done. So, and I know he's a busy person, and I appreciate this, but it just sort of felt like, well, it's not, okay.
Susan,
That's all.
was there ever a proposal then to vote no on, or you just voted no on not even considering it again? But it seems like if there wasn't a proposal to analyze, then what really was voted no on?
Just to pursue it, because we couldn't get to a purchase and sales agreement so that we could go ahead, and we didn't feel like it's a good idea to invest money in that 23 acres to see how it tests and how it bores if we don't know if we're going to buy it or not, or if we even have an option to buy it. So you don't go forward with that until you get to this part, and we just obviously, clearly, have not been able to get to that part. So,
Could I make a suggestion that maybe the board would nominate a liaison or a person to be the go-between the board and Howard, somebody to know their work?
who wants to be the?
He pointed at me.
I think it was going this end of the table. We're going.
I mean, Susan and I, the ones that were meeting with Howard.
Right.
Her meeting with the.
And I've met with him myself as well, to get paperwork signed, stuff, or track him down, chase him down, whatever it took to get to that point, with trying to get the information we needed to make a good rational decision. And like I said, and as Susan mentioned nicely, that it was hard to catch up with him.
Right, we just weren't getting it, and appreciate that he's a very busy person. Here's what I would propose. I am happy to reconsider my vote so that we can put this back on the table. I think it's a good idea to probably have a couple of us to go meet with Howard to see, so what's the deal? What are we being offered? And to get that in writing from him. And then with that information, I think we can come back and and we can talk about it.
And we were trying for that. We were trying for what Susan was just saying when we went in and met with him. But it couldn't be done until the surveying was done. And the surveying just got done.
Yeah, it just got, right.
Just got done. And so all this time, we couldn't do anything anyways because we didn't have that information. And so
Well, the longer you draw it up, the longer you pay taxes on it.
there you go. Right there.
I mean, if I was you guys, I would think about making up your mind if you wanna pursue it, and then if you do, you might wanna get a realtor involved.
But that's what we talked about. You
And
can
then
get,
you
you can
can
get
make
an
more
appraisal, get an appraisal.
It all
Right.
depends on how the boring pans out and the setbacks, and that's what it's contingent upon.
Well, we
Yeah.
were trying that.
We were making,
we
we
were
were trying to make
attempting all these
progress.
things.
That's the only way we'll nail Howard Knox down though. I mean, he's a professional businessman and business is business. so.
Are you saying that you've tried to sit down with Howard and he wouldn't do anything?
No, it was the process. And Howard couldn't sign anything or couldn't come up with a sales agreement because it had to be surveyed. So we had to have these things in place ahead of time. And the survey is until just recently, within weeks, it's been, since it got done. So we couldn't do anything anyways.
Because Howard, I've dealt with Howard for years and years. And
But Howard's also selling off a lot of his properties. He told us this. He's selling off a lot of his properties. And so his surveyors and everything like that are being tied up with these other things that I think that probably have more priority and want to get pushed along too. So all that stuff is added up over time,
No,
so,
that's a lot of if and that. I think what we're asking the board
yeah.
today is to reconsider your vote
Yes. Simple.
and put it back on the
Then-
table.
Well, I think I've just done that.
I'll make it official. I'll make the motion that we open the pit back up for considerations.
Well, all it takes is one of us to reconsider our vote, and
There
I
you go.
voted with it, so I said I'd reconsider my vote. So we're back to, we can talk about it.
But you have to vote on that, I think, don't you?
When
Because it
you
was-
reconsider, no, I think when you
Yes.
reconsider, well, I have to be
No.
allowed to reconsider.
Voting in the affirmative allows you to reconsider.
Yeah, you opened it that way,
Right.
Then you have to revote.
because you might have different opinions still.
Correct.
You have to go, yeah.
I got you.
See what I
Right,
mean?
right,
There's
right.
still
I
a
got
yes
you.
or no issue.
Right.
That's correct.
So is there any more discussion, speaking to the board? Because there's been a motion set in place?
Right,
To
to reconsider. I'm reconsider, so
I'll
now
make a motion to open it up for reconsideration.
No, you did that already.
Yeah.
You did
Susan
that.
did that.
Yeah.
I did that with my reconsideration. Then we're okay. Then we just need to vote now whether we want to reconsider it, correct, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor of reconsidering
That's what we need to do.
the vote that was taken on the 11th of this month, signify by saying aye.
Wow.
Aye. Anybody opposing, abstaining?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one last point. I think, 2 points. If you take a look at most of us here who are advocating for this, we'll never see an ounce of benefit from it. But we're gonna pay for it. And we're willing to do so, because I think it's in the best interest of the town, and most of us have lived here since we were pretty small. Secondly, if the board has any trouble with Howard, I think there's 2 or 3 of us here that let you know that, because we can light a fire pretty quick here. And we deal with him all the time. I bought property from him in the summer. And,
Yeah.
so we deal back and forth. So if you do have an issue or there's a concern, I think anybody here would be willing to help.
Right. Well, Brian, I think we should have at least one person from the board that connects with them, that connects with Howard, so that we keep it moving.
Well, I'd gladly pass that baton on to Matt if he can do it.
Would you work on that?
Oh, I think that's possible.
I think they know each other.
You are 92% of the reason that put me on the side of the board.
He's 100% why I'm.
The other 8% is your partner in crime.
So yeah, thank you. I think this is a good thing.
And we appreciate everybody coming in and letting us know how you're feeling. That's the only way we know, you know?
No, and that's, it's good to work with the board and just pursue it.
This is what bureaucracy is all about. And again,
Yeah, well, this is
when us as a board we get information every 2 weeks. If it does change in the town, my job, I feel I need to represent the town in the best way. And if it changes in the town voted on 25 acres and things change in the way that it got presented to the town, if it changes, I can't represent the town. That was
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Little dog. Little dog.
Brian, I just wanted to skip the agenda item, that's just so people know those two items are coming up. We're still under that first topic,
Okay.
but I wanna make sure the board knows those two are coming up before we go too far.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You scared everybody away.
I didn't even see you guys back there.
They snuck in.
Dale, I just figured you were part of the posse.
But I think we would agree with Ken, we're not gonna be here then.
Oh, that's right,
You want to
right.
say, hey, speak for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You should have, Dale, you should have.
I'm planning to be here.
Is that age discrimination?
I know, right?
I know where I'll commission my gravel from.
Right?
Yeah, so, also we were supposed to add to the agenda, the, flood resilience grant and brick grant.
Yeah.
For the Whitcomb Island Road and the Green
Just
River.
one, because that gets picked up.
What are they called? Flood?
Flood resistant
Oh, okay.
grant, and then, brick, brick grant. And that's up on the bridge on the Whitcomb Island Road and the, Green River
Man,
culvert. Thank you, Ron.
That gets picked up.
Yeah. So you wanna go into the grants?
Quick on the tax sale, now I can do those later, because they're
Okay,
they're
okay.
part more of a budget type.
Okay, the tax sale. Yeah,
One left,
Oh, good.
there's only one, because you
Wow,
got it down to
okay.
2, wasn't it? No, it's only
Awesome.
one.
Collins Pond, Bendick, it's 20 acres up against the reservoir property.
Yeah,
You still have time to pay it, but
That's good, it's only one.
but do we wanna, as a board, do we wanna bid on it?
Hold on, can we talk about it? I was not listening at all. Can we I'm sorry. I have
I
to.
waste more oxygen than
I
that.
know.
So there was a piece of
Jeez.
property, we talked about this last week. Which property was it this time?
this is off the end of Collins Pond Road.
Collins Pond Road.
Way up, it's more than halfway up the reservoir side, on
Yep.
the east side.
Yep.
It sits up there, it butts the state property.
What would be the benefit to the town?
There's no public interest up there. There's a question on easement and how you get there. You have to be clarified. The benefit of it is, let's say you had a very aggressive conservation commission or group that wanted to enhance public access to that area of town. You would say, hey, this matches our master plan for that area of town. We should participate in the tax sale. None of that's going on. The state of Vermont, on the other hand, if they were interested in another 20 acres, might want to add it to the state park, but I don't know what the benefit of that piece is to them. So I tend to think this would be one the town would pass on.
Yeah.
I think.
Is it all the way at the end?
Cross some other private property. So Collins Pond sort of ends
You
at
can't
a
get
certain
there.
point.
Nowhere.
Yeah, the road goes.
And then it sort of takes a left and starts
Goes up by the gravel.
Yeah, there's like a turner, well, the plow turnarounds there. It sort of takes a left and starts to head up into some other properties that are towards the reservoir. On private trails or private roads, driveways, and it gets lost up there. And it's really hard to tell if there's even any access to this land, except if you would try to walk up there, you probably could follow some kind of trail up into the property.
Did you give us a map on that property?
Should have been in the first packet, yep. No, it's just a woodsy piece up all by itself.
I just trying to figure out that it goes by Bud LeClaire's old place. Or,
Oh,
Let's see here.
While you're looking for that, I just wanted to mention that I watched the video for the last meeting and stuff. And I know that, it was brought up that I, was interested in some of those properties. in bidding on them. And the reasoning for that was that, I didn't know if any of that, because some of them were right there in North Hyde Park Village.
Right, they bought it.
Yeah.
If it would have been beneficial to the Grange Hall or anything like
Yeah.
that, because they had a parking,
Right.
issue and stuff like
Yes.
that. And so, but that's irrelevant now because everybody's paid up and,
That's what we thought too.
Yeah.
How much did get paid up?
Yeah,
Did you make a phone call?
no,
Really?
no,
Good.
I know.
Good.
And now,
So there's what, 3 that are left open?
oh, just one.
One.
Just the Collins Hall?
Mm.
try to,
Okay.
There's the yellow
Focus,
parcel.
I'm sorry. I'm still so,
So the yellow parcel up there has a little bit of looks like a trail type white line, kind of snakes up here. I don't know if you can see it on that, but it's like, it looks like some kind of old logging road.
that's Howard Bernash's road.
That could be this, I don't.
I know it is. I hunt it a lot.
That's the,
Howard Bernash says it can't.
So it's on,
And
oh,
you
okay,
click-
here's Collins Pond right here.
got it.
And then there's all private owners in here. These are all individual private owners.
And that trail goes all the way over to the Diggins Road, doesn't it?
Yes, I think so.
And again-
No,
No,
is it
I
the
think
other
Yeah, it
side?
cuts back right here and goes all the way over to the Diggins.
No,
I don't think
Yes.
so.
That back road on the green.
You'd have to
it goes
cross
all the way
water.
over.
you have, yeah, you have to
No,
cross.
you're on the backside, aren't you?
No,
Well, Howard's on the left.
Oh, you're over here. So
Yeah.
It goes all the way up to Eden. It's like-
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, the snowmobile trail used to go through there.
There might be a little
I am
bridge
following you.
or
I'm on the other side.
causeway, little causeway here or something.
You're on- you're-
I was on this side.
punch
Okay,
bowls.
back to Collins Pond,
Right,
Yeah,
Schofield
yeah.
Ledges. Yeah, the punch bowls.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're not interested.
That is very landlocked, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't think the town is.
I don't think we need that.
So it's
We
not
just
bordering
we're
any
talking
water.
about not spending another money. I don't think we need to.
Yeah.
How you get to it? By canoe?
It's landlocked.
Some kind of unknown right away off Collins Pond Road. The town road stops here where the plows turn around. And then there's a little bit, 2 or 3 properties to cut across to get up in there.
Charlie MacArthur.
So does anybody see any value in it for the town?
No.
Other than loss of revenue?
Exactly.
No,
Yeah, no.
We're gonna be here forever, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Move on.
Next
Okay.
time.
That's road.
Yeah, thank you.
No takers.
Into the elbow.
I will, come on, Brian.
Yeah, come on.
Select board is not participating on November 3rd.
Correct.
Michael Reno's interested, and so is Mr. French, in having Michael come back for
Mhm.
plow-
Okay.
Is there a letter that if we,
winter plowing
do
services.
we need to vote on it or everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in here.
All in
right?
favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed, abstaining? The ayes have it.
Did we even make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Other than that, I put down,
Okay, I'm like, now you're moving too fast.
Well, you keep beating on me, I get scared, shake and everything,
Oh,
So,
okay.
Next one is a zoning permit for a small shed at the gravel pit, which requires select board authority for Brian to sign as the landowner. They have a donated metal shed that locks for their miscellaneous equipment up there.
now this,
Oh, nice. A donated shed?
this is what,
Up off, Gopher Brook Farm up on the end of Garfield
Oh,
is
yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
done with doing whatever they were doing with it, and they're gonna bring it down.
Oh,
oh,
nice.
good, I was
nice.
wondering where it was coming. No, what's the dimensions, like 24 by 24 or something?
It's 320 square feet, so.
Yeah, 24 by
Yeah, or
24.
16 by 20 or whatever, yeah.
Does it say 24 by 24?
I'm sorry?
Does it say 24?
Yeah, on the permit it does.
Is in the packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I make a motion to allow Brian to sign as the landowner
You go, Brian.
on the zoning permit.
I'll second that one. Yeah.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposing, abstaining?
Right
Yeah,
down there.
right here, yeah, no, no.
Sign your life away.
Again,
Again. Winter salt?
okay,
This seems like a pretty decent
picking up
price.
steam here.
Ooh, yes.
Salt. Winter salt.
Not a good story. So
Yeah,
20% increase.
Is it? I feel like that was a pretty good price. Apparently not.
Yeah, we had 3 or 4 years of 60 to 70 range, and this year that didn't happen, so they had 20-something%. Very similar to, I don't even know what, there was a whole list of stuff we were looking at highway, it's this 15 to 20%, culvert materials, you know, it's like a lot of, if you can get it, it's inflated by 20%.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know how long that's gonna last. Mark and a couple of the other road foremen in the area started talking about what in the world are municipalities gonna do? Because right now, we need salt. There's no other alternative that's proven. People don't want to be told, get studs, because we're not going to salt, which is an alternative. Now, there could be supply chain issue this winter.
Right.
VLCT actually put out a flyer saying, beware, if you have extra room in your properties, put your salt sheds maximum, because you may run out of supply during the winter. So that got
It's
everybody
just a
thinking, it's like,
tactic.
all right, if that actually happens,
just
what
a
does the
tactic.
select board do? We're not gonna think about that, because somehow it's gonna work out, right? So,
It's gonna work.
We got enough sand.
yep,
We got
lots of
plenty of
sand.
We got
sand.
sand.
We got
Right.
plenty of sand.
Yeah, that's the only alternative we have, unlimited, almost unlimited supply of sand. And gravel, you could actually use in really bad conditions, you could actually run gravel on
Right.
roads. Not the best
I know
clean.
towns that don't even put salt on their blacktop.
Yeah, there's a couple of towns
you?
in Lamar County that don't allow it, because I don't think they have pavement. So anyway, the contract for 7053 from Compass, who we've worked for 3 years now, they're sort of new to the area, used to be just a couple of vendors, Cargill usually, they're a little bit higher. The state of Vermont typically would take out a bid for the state of Vermont that towns can buy from. They stopped that this year.
I was gonna say, they didn't.
So if you look at the state contract, which is the first time I've seen it, it said this contract is for state only, municipalities, you're on your own.
Why'd they do that?
I think it's better for the state of Vermont. Because
Yeah, but they sell twice as much salt.
but they don't, the pricing had to be better for the state of Vermont, that's my,
Yeah.
without
Yeah,
knowing
they
it, they
do
had,
it, sure.
that had to be the reason.
Thank you,
But that put the
for the
towns,
state of Vermont.
but then the towns saw the 20% increase partly due to that.
Oh, well, think about it, when they want us to do the roundabout.
The answer from this,
Exactly, Roland.
hey, Susan, you'll appreciate this. The answer from V-Trans, we're not changing unless the legislature tells us to open it up again.
Okay. Well, that's probably not that hard to take care of.
Think about it when we,
Since every legislator comes from a town and the
rail
towns are
trail.
gonna be
How many
irritated.
tons of salt do we buy in a year? Roughly.
We estimate a contract amount of 1,250. So that, the second answer to that is, can the towns develop a cooperative regional facility
yeah.
and make a big facility where the towns can buy in bulk, just like the state does,
Just like the state
and
does.
then have towns go to the regional county or northern Vermont facility that we don't let the state buy in, and we'll get a better price. Because we have more buying power than the state
I
does
used-
for northern
Yeah.
Vermont.
I used to do it with cutting edges.
Yeah, right?
Plow cutting edges, Hyde Park, Cambridge, Johnson.
Oh, you went together on it?
Culverts?
Well,
Culverts.
if you start doing it with salt, it could definitely lead to doing it with other things.
I think it's something to look into.
For sure.
Yeah.
So if we got a motion to sign the Compass, Brian can sign the Compass contract for 70.
Let's see, I move that Brian signed the Compass contract. And what do we need to do to check out, pursue with other towns?
I asked
looking
Rob
at?
Moore at Regional Planning if they
Okay.
could spearhead something like that, and he was gonna talk to his people.
Okay.
at Regional. Just- When you're talking to all the towns, it's better to work
Yeah,
with
that's
the
right.
regional.
And there you're talking about, right there, they're the state.
Regional planning commissions?
Yeah, that's state.
No, they're
They're
regional
not, they're
planning.
they're not led of the state, but they are supposed to be working for all the
Right.
director towns. So we have directors on their board that can facilitate that kind of thing.
What they
I
do,
would
right?
think
We don't have directors on the state
we
board.
would just
so
get together with the town
Select boards?
administrators
Oh,
and the select boards and go from
Yeah, but
there.
that takes a lot of organization, see, and that's where they do that stuff all the time.
and then they come to us?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that usually how it works?
Yeah.
Then they would come to the select board?
No, well,
Or-
see, Rob Moore at Regional is their one staff person that sort of tries to coordinate road foreman meetings and things like that.
That's right.
But he's not super active on something like this. It would take reps from all the towns, like Roland saying. to get
Gotcha.
together and start meeting on it if it was to get legs. And Rob's resource is really telling us what the state needs to see to if we want to relate to the state at all. But he can work directly with the towns now. That's a change. They used to be at arm's length of the town, sort of, just a branch of the town, from the state to the town. Now they've gotten permission to operate directly with towns and not having to go back to the state. And that's a change in the last couple of years. So it's a little slightly different but beneficial to the towns. I almost see the dividing of the world a little bit, where the state is gonna consolidate what they wanna consolidate, and the towns are all gonna have to go regional services.
And they've been after that for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I can see that. They're just, we're not gonna, 20 years ago, we'd have the state engineer here helping the road foreman design roads or check roads out or whatever.
Yeah.
They've gradually cut off any support.
Distancing themselves.
So is our region Lamoille County, or is our region bigger than that? When you
That's
say
my district.
regional,
I think from a transportation perspective, you have to look at what makes the most sense.
gotcha.
So whether it's each town or north, south, I don't know what we would be interested in. Lamoille County, like Roland said, doesn't have a lot of tonnage as northern Vermont would. But would everybody
Gotcha.
go to Hyde Park Central Depot to get their salt? I don't know.
Well, the thing is, once you do that, you have to buy, everybody has to buy their salt either from Cargo or whoever.
Compass or somebody, yeah.
You're gonna go to one.
They're looking for commitments, multi-year commitments, is what
Right.
Compass likes. And if the quantity's high enough, I think that would be the best you can get.
And I know Barrett's would be interested in talking about it.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it'd be very competitive. I know when Dave was talking earlier, he reminded me in my head that he was doing the state bids for all auto parts. And all the auto dealers would have to make this huge proposal to the state about how they can best serve. And I think we do the same thing. We'd have all the suppliers come in and say, one of the questions this year was, do you get your raw materials by train or port? And Barrett's is train out of southern New York, and Compass is coming from the north on the St. Lawrence. So they're by ship. And the reason we got a note from VLCT about worry about chains is the
Straight.
is the strike that's coming up at the end of this month or early November.
They won't
Sometime in
strike.
November, that if that goes,
Government
everything
won't let
stops, like heavy material stuff.
Interesting.
So we should be okay because we're by port. That was the summary of all that.
Yeah.
So we got a motion.
Yes.
On and so any other discussion?
Is that
Everybody?
second, yes.
Yes. I did. Yeah.
Second. Oh, yeah, that was me too. Yeah,
So Compass
Okay.
proposal on the agenda is wrong. It's actually whatever Brian's holding.
yeah. The 70-53,
Oh, 70-53, right, not
Yeah.
89, okay.
That was the competitive bid.
yeah. So, if you signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed, abstaining? The ayes have it, and I sign right here.
Oh, sorry, I gotta backtrack. 7053 is the FY '22 amount. The 89 on the agenda was correct for FY '23, which you're signing. So just,
Oh, got
so
it.
that's, the
Okay, yeah.
difference is the $19 and such.
Gotcha.
So that's for the record, just, it's 89, 83 for the contract. That 70 is last year's better
Gotcha.
price, if you will.
And I don't need to sign the other one?
No.
Okay.
Which is still a lot cheaper
So,
than Barrett's.
Yeah, Barrett, I don't know if he gave you that.
91 something.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
91 and Cargo 91, yeah, 91.0. All bad.
Okay. ETO policy?
Yeah, ETO policy. So last meeting, you sort of voted the outline of this policy, which I drafted and reviewed with Jennifer today. And I'll just go over it really quickly. Basically, the board had a okay to go negative on ETO for people that use their ETO. This draft does a couple things. One is it makes the negative ETO for anybody that earns ETO now, by policy, and works more than 18 hours a week, which is a minimum for benefits, for leave benefits, they can go, that person that's doing 18 can go negative 18. Your discussion last week was about negative 40 or something. But this policy sets it to their regular work hours. So Jennifer's at her, let's say 32, that's as most, she can go negative. Highway crew is at 40, they can go negative 40. They can't continue to go negative once that pay period is closed.
Gotcha.
They really have to use flex time or scheduling changes or
Okay.
whatever to get through the point where they're positive again.
Which is what we wanted.
I think
So
that's
they
what you
didn't
want, that
keep-
was the discussion, right? So you don't have somebody perpetually negative.
Exactly.
And I think that is it. Now, this says, should an employee not have positive ETO, any additional leave time is unpaid, but shall be pre-approved by the supervisor and notice provided to the town administrator. So unpaid leave right now, if it's not under this ETO thing, would go to the select board. So if somebody says, I'm gonna take the next month off, I wanna be unpaid and get my job back, that's a select board discussion.
Gotcha.
This one is purely this kind of the pay period to pay period thing, where somebody's like, I can't get my 40, can I go negative on the 8 as unpaid? Because the policy says I can't get paid. Yeah, you're in the negative, you didn't get it back, you can take the unpaid leave and they get paid for 32 hours that week. That's the only flexibility that a person has. They're gonna still earn it. Every week that you work, you still earn the 5, 7, or 9 hours of pay period. So they keep, 40-hour person is gonna be about 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks, 4.5 payrolls to get back positive, which isn't too long to manage your flex time and try to, I need to do kid things on Tuesday afternoon, can I work late Wednesday? Those kind of flexible, so they don't have to take the ETO.
Yeah.
So it's really a supervisor employee flexibility.
Sure.
Her question was wondering about persons in negative condition and they need just a couple hours more. Is there any, and I said, not really, no, not by this policy.
Right.
It gets a little complicated if you say, yeah, you're negative, but this is this third payroll where you haven't quite got to positive, and then they want to book another -5, that puts them further out.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to.
I just told her not for this particular.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to avoid is
Right, so,
continuous.
but that was her comment, other than she can administer this if it comes up. That was my main question to her as the payroll lead on this, is can you administer this? And she said yes.
So we need a motion to accept this?
Well, you pretty much agreed to all this last week, right? It's just-
Yeah, he just wanted to write it
Just the
out.
words that
Yep.
go with it, a motion to approve the ETO negative ETO policy, I guess is what you call it. And then what happens with these as you go through your years outside of a major amendment to your personnel policy is we put these in the amendments folder.
Yeah.
And then we do a bunch together. We don't
Do it
go,
every
that
time.
requires sending it out to all the employees and getting signatures, and it's a process to send out a new policy. Here, we can just notice the change and we can start administering it if you have it, both have it effective today.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve this ETO policy as written.
Effective.
Effective today? Sure. Effective today.
You have a second?
A second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstaining?
Last meeting, we also talked about the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, a grant program that's new from V-Trans, which provides us 80% state, 20%. Sorry. 20% local match for scoping studies and construction projects. Met with V-Trans, which is part of the grant application process last week, maybe right after your meeting. And the rail division was there. We met the rail trail, we walked around the triangle, which is the parking lot on the rail trail to Depot Street, north on Depot Street, down Depot Street Extension. So that triangle has a few different safety and pedestrian issues within it. One is there's a little bit of a hill on the trail, which is not ADA compliant. There's no access to the Depot Street driveway from the rail trail crossing, so people have to go down Depot Street Extension to get on the ramp to then go up Depot Street. For some reason, there's no ramp at the corner with Depot Street and Depot Street Extension. And then there's a little bit of drainage impact on the neighbor on the inside corner. And if you go there, you'll see he's trying to build up berms to try to protect his property. And we shouldn't put people in that position, but we looked at the drainage pattern coming down the hill from the school, and it goes straight past a catch basin. That's on the corner where this ramp should be. So if you go there, you'll see a little catch basin, it looks great, but because the flow is so long on the whole face of that curve up Depot Street on the west side of Depot, it gets enough speed that it shoots straight across and goes into his property. Whatever, we don't know what the problem is with that exactly, but we wanna look at that, sort of the three different issues in there, along with the sightline and traffic calming, which we get regular complaints of from people driving up and down Depot Street. Either trail users or drivers that all of a sudden the knotweed's grown up, or the sign is blocked, or the speed sign, something's going on there, like at a regular high maintenance. And we can't keep up with it all, and then there's these complaints that they didn't see the bike jumping out onto Depot Street.
Yeah.
So that's part one, which is a scoping study. The 80% would come from the state, it's $15,000, and 80% from the state. Here's some copies of that. $15,000 for the scoping study, the town share is $3,000, about 20%. The town sidewalk reserve fund is funded every year, $25,000 a year, and it has a good balance right now to accommodate the $3,000 town cash match. Grant applications due November 1st, so and it's really simple, it's like 3 or 4 questions.
Oh, okay, I'm like, wow, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it's a simple one, but it basically is what I have written there. 5 years ago, we had Summit Engineering look at that ramp issue on Depot Street Extension, and they actually tried to figure out how to get a sidewalk extension to the rail trail and how it would look. And it was sort of like a preliminary plan, but it wasn't final plan for construction, but it was pretty detailed. They had contours and all the infrastructure there. We would start there and then add in the bigger triangle piece, and then somebody would look at it. We'll just do a RFP for engineering services, and they would look at it from all of their world. Traffic volumes, traffic speeds, safety, visibility, drainage issues, all that kind of stuff, and decide what is needed there to kind of finish that area, I guess is a good way to look at it. It's partially built, but it's not finished. And if we get more people from 93 miles coming through town, then that's a missing piece, because they're forced to walk in Depot Street right now if they want to get up to Main Street. Not the best. The second part of the grant is a construction grant, pavilion kiosk plan. We've had a kiosk plan since 2009, which has not been built. We actually had a grant in 2010 that expired because the town couldn't figure out how to make it happen. So that all's done, but the plans are still good. But the rail division in particular, there's one person that manages all 93 miles. He's watching all the towns do various projects, and he said the most successful projects that he's seeing is basically something like the St. Johnsbury Pavilion. And it's basically just a concrete pad with some timbers supporting a decent roof and 4 picnic tables under there, a 10-seater picnic table, not little ones, for people to get up on and get out of the weather and know that it's there for lunch, and go to that parking area and know that it's there. I don't know, that sounds like a great plan. We get up one wall with all the things that we have wanting to go down there, which is a map and information for the village, and get up on Main Street with the flyers or whatever that information board will be, which is what the small kiosk was going to be used for, that Greg Paws designed, which is really too small. You'd only be able to get out of the weather there for like 5 or 6 or 7 people, not quite enough to use it per se. So kind of setting that plan aside and looking for a little bit bigger. The interesting part from V-Trans and from the town's perspective is that pavilion ideal spot is on top of David Ring's corral. If you've been down there, you'll see.
So we'd have to purchase the property?
No.
No.
Oh, that's
that is,
That's between the state and David.
Yeah, so that is gonna be left up to the state. So basically, if we, the board, signs this letter of support, which I have drafted right here, the letter of support says, we, the town, know that this is a regional facility that's being used more, and we are trying to do our best to make it more useful and aesthetically pleasing or whatever. For local reasons as well as regional. So the state comes in and they will sort out
Oh, those things.
the issues
Yep.
that we have. And I don't know what they're gonna do. I just know that the scoping study is pretty straightforward.
Right.
The pavilion,
All we do is
that
sign a
is a
letter and say, go
property
for it, and then
rights issue that
they
has
do
been
it or they
around
don't.
since.
Can we vote on this in two parts?
what is
Yeah,
the two part?
no, the grant authorization is submitted is in two parts, so it's the scoping study or it's the pavilion,
Oh, it's one or the other?
or both.
Okay.
And the pavilion one is interesting because the state actually asked for us to apply so that they could focus their resources on the David Ring Corral.
Right.
Right, the town's gotta pay 40 grand?
The town match on the construction is 40 grand. I'm only applying for the construction. The V-Trans has told us that they're gonna deal with it through the state's attorney's office.
So we're not committing to town tax dollars for this?
Reserve money is 20% of construction. That's what you're seeing on this piece of paper, is that we're guessing that the upper end for something that looks pretty simple. It might be a lot less than that, but I have no idea how much a pavilion costs these days.
I'm just struggling with everything we're talking about, and the rising costs, everything. I am not in on a $40,000 town share of pavilion but that's me.
Yeah, I think the town voters have approved $25,000 a year, he's going on 10 years now, to put away for bike ped improvements within village that enhance the town.
Right.
Whether it gets people off the trail and gets them up to the village, Main Street, or whether it's just a Hyde Park place to go. So we put 70,000 into the art project across the trail at limited, there wasn't total no cost because I've been involved with it. But as far as the construction goes and the design work, that's all been funded by grants and donations. This pavilion one, if they could clear the property rights issue, because you're applying for a construction grant and they pay for that part of it, because they know the town wants to do something for the trail and for the town at 20% match. I think that trailer facility has a lot of potential for the very long term. With David Ring still putting his stakes in the ground right in the middle of the parking area, and us not wanting to spend any time and effort on it, because we, like Susan said, we always felt it was a state issue with David Ring,
Right.
then this might be the way to get over that hurdle.
But we never really figured out if he owned it or not.
Oh, the state's quite clear he does not.
Yeah, the state is clear that he
Yeah,
was not.
that
they're
is
willing to
state
take
property.
the fight.
It's not our property, it's state property.
Okay, well,
So what,
somebody make a motion or whatever, that's an action item, let's go, I guess.
well, let's do the scoping study,
Yeah,
let's do them
just do it.
separately.
Yep.
Okay, so move the scoping study. So we can
Second.
figure if we could not keep sending water down that poor guy's property.
Yes. Susan and Jesse,
Okay,
right?
yep,
So you've made a motion on the scoping study?
Yeah.
and I second it.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstaining? The ayes have it for the skipping project. Steady. Okay, now I need to sign this, or not?
Well, no,
Already
now
got-
we need a
we have part two
motion.
now.
No,
Right.
no, we have to do part two.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we sign the letter of, it's interest?
It's a letter of support.
It's a letter of support, which doesn't mean we have to do it, it's a letter of support. For the pavilion kiosk. And if the state ever gets that sorted out, it may be your children sitting on the board that get to deal with it. But I think that's the sort of thing that there are plenty of grant monies available, so I wouldn't shift it back. I mean, that's the kind of project that I think is great to go looking for money outside and grant money that pays for it, so it's not coming out of our regular budget.
Not coming out of the town.
Right.
The other parts of that, I don't know, do you have a second, Susan?
Yeah, no,
No.
I need a second.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, so the other part of that is the kiosk, like I said, has been a town project at 50/50 grant before. So this is a
Right.
little bit better grant program to get to that structure that welcomes people to Hyde Park.
We're not committing any money to it today. We are just,
Correct.
we're committing an application.
Yeah, so the application goes in and then we'll get an award letter, which is another chance to look at whether or not we even.
2 years down the road.
No, I think they're trying to get awards done by January.
Okay,
Well, they may,
but you got a motion, you got a second.
yes, but they've got to sort out the property before they can do anything.
For construction, yeah, so you're basically committing that the select board wants to see a pavilion there someday. Susan's conditioning that on the ring thing being resolved.
Right.
To make that happen in that spot, not somewhere else, right in that area. That's what the project is.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposing, abstaining?
I'm gonna oppose just because I don't feel educated on it and I don't like it. I don't like the number that's being proposed. That's the only reason.
And you have a second guess. You have a second.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, sorry, this is a project that the state has just kind of pushed along, and the reason I brought it was because of the ring component. I've been struggling with it for 10 years.
You'll never hear nothing out of this.
Well, and that's fine, I just want, my
No,
word.
No, that's good. No, I
Yeah,
don't understand.
Energy burst?
I'm having an energy burst.
Your face is all red.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so, let's see. Now the town budget.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
I needed some air.
There you go,
So
okay.
the Guyon Valley Committee, ARPA Furnace Project, FYI 2024, Operating and Reserve Fund.
Dale's here. Valerie's here.
Yeah.
You ladies can come up.
Is it?
It's easier than speaking near the mic about 3-4 feet apart. You don't have to jump on the mic.
That's right. That's what I definitely use some sugar. Yeah, these are nice and
And
lemony.
we appreciate your patience.
No worries. This was great.
Educational. And we're pretty entertaining.
Right, right. Initially, what Ron had first sent out, we thought that this was it, you know, like we would be it. We have your undivided attention at 6 o'clock. Then you saw the agenda, and I was like, okay then. But it was very interesting to hear things. So folks, I think know who I am. My name's Dale Porter, Valerie Valcour. We're both nurses, so if you're feeling ill, we'll be happy to say goodnight.
Oh, no,
Right?
well, I wish you could say the regular
Yeah,
number.
there you go. Actually,
Never
never
bothers
saved our
me.
lives by coming around with a dish of candy.
Yeah.
So we're both on the Guyon Valley Hall Committee. I know you were given in your packet the gist of what we're here to talk about. Feeling really good up until some of the other stuff. It's like, okay, you saved money because you didn't buy a gravel pit tonight. You saved some more money because you didn't buy a piece of landlocked land in a beautiful area. I was feeling really good until we heard that the salt price went up. But there you go. So here we are with what you were given in your packet as our ask for the Guyon Valley Hall budget for the next fiscal year. We did not know that the first line was going to be the ARPA grant money or ARPA fund money. That was kind
It's
of
an ongoing discussion.
Sure. So at any rate, we can entertain some questions about that, but we do not have all of the stuff that you've already been presented for that.
Yes, well, just a quick summary. Al has, last meeting, presented some information with 2 quotes on new furnace for the propane fossil fuel supply.
Yes.
He admitted that he didn't quite get through Efficiency Vermont, but then he's followed it up with I've talked to somebody kind of email, and they're not interested because they don't really care about furnace too much. They want to do other things with it. I haven't had a chance to follow up exactly what all that meant. It was a little confusing.
And Al has been not feeling well and been in the hospital.
Al had a heart tune-up last week. I don't think he'd mind us saying that because he came to our meeting last night and shared most of the details. He's
On
in much
Facebook.
better shape.
He's doing well. Okay.
Yes, he's doing very well. He's
Okay.
doing very well.
So that, all of that was, you know, kind of hanging at the board level because you had asked for a 3rd quote, and Al was supposed to explore more details about
Right,
that.
we had, so the things that we do know is that he did his due diligence, reached out to 3 vendors, got 3 quotes. And the very first vendor who answered the call immediately and came and did the site review and was to prepare an estimate is the one who has not prepared the written estimate. They did do the review of the site and have been busy and yes, we'll get to it, et cetera. So the third estimate that you do not have in writing, it's out there. I don't know what else Al can do. He's made a number of calls. And they have said, oh yeah, we'll get to it. So there's that. 3 estimates were given, and they all came out to the number that you have had in front of you, whatever that is. But that's ARPA that we were not expecting to talk too much about tonight, but we do all know about it, and we're happy to do our best answering questions.
Yeah, as far as I know, we don't have the third quote yet, which is what the board had asked for in the last 2 weeks.
And after Al had called and asked
Yes.
a number of times.
I think he has done all
And
he
you
can.
know me that.
Yes, Al has
I
called.
still haven't got the agenda.
For tonight?
So anyway, Al made a number of calls to that particular supplier. I don't know what else he can do. So we had actually come back and asked Ron, maybe you make a call. Maybe somebody from the select board make a
Yeah.
call, if you really want to see the third quote. But they were all local vendors and they all were willing to take on the project if they were selected.
Yeah. All right, that's enough on that, unless you guys want to keep waiting. I think Al was hoping for some kind of accelerated approval so that you could get work done, or get it moving somehow.
Well, everything that has been ever asked for to be done has been subject to finding somebody who could do it. So we can always say we're urgently looking to try to get work done, but to actually make it happen. But
Yeah.
that ask, the ARPA money ask was for heat for the building.
Right.
We just, of course, with the federal government with, what did I just pass? The Inflation Reduction Act. Buried in the Inflation Reduction Act is a change in the federal tax credit for energy improvements. Always, as long as I can remember, has been prohibited for municipal participation. That act, which became effective in summer this year, allowed municipalities to take an equal credit that a business would get. That, I just got the guidance on that. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick. But the summary is that projects like what you're right involved with could be available for major credits, which you're not considering in your expenses. So just simply having ARPA and not leveraging it with other programs is not good fiscal management. It may be a good project and it may be funded by ARPA, but I think whether it's Efficiency Vermont or whether it's this tax credit thing or whether it's another grant round of some other, could split the difference on what we're asking to use from ARPA. The board needs to make that decision about how long you spend doing that, right? So you get to a certain point and say, we have a $50,000 or $60,000 project. Going to ARPA is easy. Going to the tax credit thing, which is new, is gonna take some time. Going to other grant programs or Efficiency Vermont sometimes will take time. But in the end, you'll have a net taxpayer impact or reduction of ARPA that somebody else doesn't get because they're not eligible for what you're doing. So they can't take advantage of the tax credit or some other grant. So juggling all those things is not easy, it takes time. Al came at it because I actually recommended that he consider adding that to the ARPA list because you don't have money for it, you don't have a grant for it,
Adding what to the list?
the furnace.
Right,
So
right, and
that's where we got
you
to,
came up to both Al and I and said,
let's do it. Yeah.
let's put this in, because this seems like a reasonably good thing. So that's what we
Yeah.
did do.
You're doing everything you need to do.
I was gonna say, please, can you just
I
unspin
heard
my
you.
head right now?
I heard you.
You saw my eyes going
I
around.
heard, no, I heard you and saw you, but I have to advocate for the other pieces that really aren't your bailiwick, I guess.
No, you have to advocate for heat in the building. Period.
Committee's
End of
job is
story.
to advocate for heat year-round in the building.
But
Correct.
when the first ARPA requests went in, you know that we wanted you to buy the house next door so that we could have a parking lot. And then we did submit every single thing that's on phase 1, 2, and 3's list to consider for a whole lot more money. And then it was recommended that we focus on just something that would be really meaningful, and that is the meaningful thing, is heating the building. So that's our.
And I also asked Al if there could be some sort of a plan laid out of how you want to proceed and everything. My concern is putting a furnace in that's not enough BTUs for the size of the building, not counting the draftiness that's currently there.
Well, apparently the vendors that came and looked at it for that exact reason.
Yeah.
There already is a furnace there that heats the first floor plus the heat pumps, but a furnace in the building, or in the basement, excuse me, that would go all the way up as needed.
Expandable.
Right,
Yeah.
expandable, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then the utility room, which was the construction costs added up on top of the cost of the furnace, and heat for the water. Those things were all for in the basement to supply the whole building. So I don't think it was a furnace for just the first floor. This was a heating system that would carry all the way up.
Yeah, and what I was told, it may have changed, it was a 100,000 BTU furnace, and my house, which will fit in the first floor of that, has that in it.
Oh, we
And-
talked about this, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he wasn't here.
No, he was. He said my house would fit inside that.
Right.
So yeah.
I think you were here.
We cannot speak to what the bids were, because that's the piece we don't
Yes.
have. You guys had that submitted to you,
Yeah.
and the third one that's still out there. But the ask, when they came to do the assessment and produce the bid or the invoice or the estimate, excuse me, was for heat that would supply all the way upstairs, not just heat.
And the
main
information
floor.
I gained was from one of the companies that had came to give it a price there,
Mhm.
and that's where I got the information. And it put things together. I started thinking, well, what have I got for a furnace in my house? Yeah, it's 105,000 BTU, and that thing sometimes has to run quite a bit when it's 30, 40 below, type of thing. Keep it,
Well,
you know,
you take just a mobile home, they put 150,000 BTUs in one of them.
you know.
150,000 BTUs. And you're putting 100,000 BTUs in that building up there, they ain't gonna eat it.
And I mentioned that to Al. I mentioned it when he was here 2 meetings ago, and he was gonna, like I said, look at other vendors or whatever, try to find something. I'm really surprised that you even got a bid saying that, but like you said, they were probably comparing it to what was already in place there. And again, I don't know if it was used seasonal, like spring and fall type of thing, and
The little furnace?
the furnace that's downstairs in the,
The furnace that's on the main hall.
Okay.
It's like a trailer furnace.
Yeah.
It's, you know, your basic.
Hot air.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, propane fire, it's like what's in my garage, it's identical to the thing that's in my
The
garage.
good thing is about that, nothing freezes. When you go hot water,
Right,
That's something that he brought up too. He was gonna make like turn knobs or something in that. And you got a maintenance thing where you guys do get leaks or something to that effect.
you know.
Well, let's talk about your budget.
I was gonna say, that's.
I'm like, we're way off.
did
Like,
you?
we
did
segued
they-
into something we
Chastity,
didn't
you were
need to.
supposed to beat him up there one day.
I was, but I've spent the last 3 weeks at UVM with my dad, so.
Yeah,
I-
but this was,
No, ever since the last meeting, my dad's been in the
3 weeks.
hospital.
Yeah, Al was only here 3 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
So you
so I
never-
haven't talked to Al.
It sounds like Al's been in the hospital
And it
too.
sounds like Al, I should have gone and visited him right at the hospital. Was he at UVM?
There we go.
Yeah, we'll do
So
that.
yes.
you never met with the efficiency guy up there?
No,
No.
because Al hasn't, they're not interested. I met with Brent.
You did meet with Brent.
I met with Brent a long time ago.
What'd Brent say?
Brent said what you said wouldn't work.
Okay.
No, he agrees with the 100,000. That's what him and Eddie came up with. But I don't know why they haven't got a price to him yet.
But it's a different type of heat.
It is.
100,000
It's not apples to apples
You're
at all.
talking about a boiler unit. They're putting in $100,000.
Okay, but we're still getting off the subject here.
Yes, they're talking about boilers.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
we're
Can
not
we just do
talking
the
about
budget
ARPA
so
tonight.
that I can go home?
Yeah, let's talk about the budget, and then we can talk
We
about that.
want you to talk all about this and
Right.
get it all figured out
The
for us.
100,000 BTU is, you're thinking of furnace. You're not thinking of boiler unit. A boiler unit, 100,000
Okay.
BTU boiler
This is not
units
what we're
are
supposed to be
big
talking about.
compared
Once
to.
you get it all
Get 'em
figured out.
Like, if you go
straight
to Lynn's
down.
and you ask for a boiler,
We need to get a gavel.
25,000 BTU boiler.
Some good on
It's
plastic
really,
tape.
it's really helpful having you here that knows all this.
Okay.
Much more.
So you want to increase your budget to 6,500?
Okay, and I'm gonna say that that came from Ron, as we pointed out, that while we were sitting talking about bills and utilities, and you guys had the increase in the salt, so like I said, but that serves because everything goes up by something.
Yeah.
So that was sort of factored into there, but when we were talking about it, we asked, well, have you guys been getting the water bill? And nobody's been getting the water bill. So if we get heat and we have water all the time, we're pretty sure we're gonna start getting a water bill, and that has not been factored in.
Yep.
So, the other things that in sort of the very beginning, we threw it out there, well, we'd like to change all the light bulbs. We still haven't changed all the light bulbs, and if we go through and change all the light bulbs, that's a chunk of change. We got a really lovely mahogany door to replace the side door, but, we'll need a knob and some block stuff and might have to frame it differently or whatever. And none of those things are factored into that very tight $5,000 to keep the building going. So we were just looking at a little bump there.
Okay.
You have revenue in it, right? You're renting the building.
Yes. And that's a little further down here,
Mhm.
that we would be pretty happy to have the rental income kept on the separate line, because that rental income is handled through the town office anyway.
Mhm.
So if that went, and I put 10s and 15s because each of those general ledger lines gets a special number, but the 10 stuff would be sitting there, coming into the town. I'm just stopping right there before I bury myself, but.
I run the rec committee, it's kind of similar, we rent our rec fields to
Sure.
ASA, so it's kind of the same line item. What Al was mentioning for numbers,
Mhm.
your revenues are, your cost of rental is very cheap.
The cost of rental is very cheap. Those were things that were established by the town. We didn't come up with those numbers.
Okay.
So
So maybe that could help some offset on that budgetary line item, where that's, I think more like our rec, right? We have $11,000 budget, but only 7,000 supplied by the town, so it's expected revenue.
right, so somewhere along the way, that can be sorted out, but we put that in there as yes, the rental income could sit back on that side of the ledger as income to offset taxpayer contributions to the building.
That must be being tracked already, isn't it? Yeah.
No, we had to sort it out, 'cause it was a little,
Right,
between
because.
10 and the 15, we had to
Right.
figure out which goes where.
Right.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
but Jennifer did say that a 10 line would accept the building rental fees. She handles them anyway, because when someone wants to rent the building, they don't come to me and hand me the $25. It
Okay,
comes
it comes
directly
in.
into the town anyway. So it would just sort of take out the middleman, put it back there against the taxpayer fund for the 6,000.
Got it.
Question. So you said the town set what you could charge?
But that's where we got what the rental
That was,
fees
yeah,
traditionally have
that was
been.
old, that was an old schedule that came when they first decided to rent, before they were actually using,
Okay, right.
and before there was even water or Wi-Fi or now heat. So the expenses have gone up, and that rate should be.
I was gonna say, I should read
And
it.
we certainly have time when the water gets shut off before it gets turned back on, because we're not gonna get heat this winter.
Right.
To think about what the fee schedule
Yeah.
should be for the rental of the building.
Yeah, I think there's definitely
There's something very
fee schedule,
modest to begin with per hour, and there's even less if you're a nonprofit.
Okay.
I mean,
It's similar to, we did both the rate schedules when we were doing this building. There was exemptions, there was reduced,
Sure.
and there was like market rate,
Yeah.
so.
but the
people-
town set that,
Gotcha.
We're happy to abide by whatever increase the town chooses to set for it.
Well, I think you all use it, so you should come back with recommendations.
There we go.
Yeah.
Either way,
Because you,
I think
Because you
we-
kind of
got
know
an
the different
idea of what the
groups
market
too, and the
will bear,
different
right?
groups that come in, you know, like if you have certain nonprofits that come in that rent and.
and having no particularly great answer about that beforehand, we're using the building more and more, so people are asking for it. So there will be more income, and yes, it will go back to the town to offset the budget.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to?
Well, the big ask was the reserve fund. You guys would talk about the reserve fund. I don't think any of this is action for tonight, it's all.
No.
It's all
Yeah.
considered. It's for
Like
us to
just a-
discuss.
It's just, goes into the budget. right?
Yeah, so what we do from now is from that too, all the way through January, is committees and boards will come in and give us information. And I'm making notes, and we're trying to build the budget as you go. And
Yeah.
towards Christmas, we'll give you a first consolidated look. January is hard because you have to make the cuts or amendments based on all the information.
To get it ready for town meeting.
Which has to be done by the end of January, so you have a good month as this stuff comes into, at
So
the end.
the historical piece of asking for the reserve fund was getting a handle on what happens to money at the end of the fiscal year and not having a ton of it to start with. So we're making our money with pie sales and the donation jar and the this and that and the other thing, and then at the end of the fiscal year, if we haven't spent it, it's rolled back in. It's been Ron's suggestion since the beginning of this year that, gee, in order to make sure that there is a pot of money that can be used against grants, which we proved that we can apply for and get, and stay there, and a place to dump the donation jar from time to time, and it would stay there for things like, who the heck knows, how much does a stove or a kitchen cost? How much would we apply for a grant but need to have some in-kind match done? We just picked a number, asked for it on an annual basis to go in out of what's left in the town, to sit there, be there the next year if we didn't spend it, add to with the donation jar and the pie sales, and then have a substantial amount of money at some point. You know, with the speed with which you can hire a contractor and get anything done, it's possible that that would roll over from year to year and actually be a chunk of change that would buy an elevator if you had to meet an ADA or put the rear fire escape on. Things that are just so far out of our reach right now financially, period. This, we don't have a ton of money. So that was the ask at Ron's suggestion when we were very dismayed to, at the end of the fiscal year, have to start all over again with no money.
Part of that is how you
It's
ask.
cheaper to move the building.
You know what, I
Yeah.
just brought that up at our meeting last night. The next big grant by God is $200,000 to move the damn building. But, you
Buy
know,
the land up in Garfield, set it up
there
there.
you go, put it up on the,
I
on
like
the
that
thing.
idea.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, that's not the most far-fetched thought, because what if, but just the same. It's been getting use, it's there. The ideal thing would be if it had a parking lot.
Your
or
house. You
Move it
know,
up to my house, yeah. I have a nice big flat backyard,
There you go.
you know, I love that old building.
It's
No,
getting
it
to
is a
the point
beautiful
where
building.
I've been here for 6.5 years and we just keep spending.
And
It
then,
don't
you
seem
know,
so we're getting anywhere, so.
well, if you'd come
Oh,
last
no,
week,
that's
you've
not-
been listening
I
to
know.
music.
No, it's definitely, it's come a long way.
Well, I'm just saying.
And a lot of hard work's gone into it.
The first part is we don't even have a parking place.
Yeah, well, there hasn't ever been a parking place. We just have to
Pick
go
it
back
up,
to.
put it on stilts and then take it somewhere.
It's not very expensive sometimes.
Right,
What's that?
You leave the foundation and you have a new foundation
You have a new
waiting.
foundation. It used to be $100,000 to move a house.
But
I'm
man,
sure
that foundation is nice.
No, well,
When I went in that basement, it's
it's
not
there.
even leaking. It's rugged. I feel like,
It's-
right?
It's been sitting there all along. It's
Been
gonna sit
redone
there.
once or twice.
Oh, has it?
It's gonna be sitting there for a while. Yeah, we did our own work 2 seasons ago to seal up the
Oh,
windows and cut down the frost that came in
Oh, okay.
so that it stayed dry.
yeah, it was very dry.
Stayed dry. And our handy dandy dehumidifier is doing its job. At any rate, there you have it. So that was the suggestion on Ron's part when we were whining because we did not have this continuing thing to have a modest amount set aside out of wherever that money comes from that would be there at the end of the fiscal year to be added to.
There's no vote needed, right?
No voting tonight, this
Yeah,
is
so
just
it's-
our thing.
Yeah, the budget and the warning will be finalized all together in January.
So that'll be added to the wish list and then we'll
Yeah.
look at it and.
And if there's questions to make the ask more, if you need more information, then we can always come up with that.
Yeah, and I
This is
think,
good,
you know,
yeah.
it's sort of an anchor in a way for other grants perhaps, you know, down the road in terms of
When,
improving the, just
North
the
Hyde Park.
community of North Hyde Park.
Yeah.
when is the, talked about to put insulation in that building?
It's probably on our list.
I'm just saying.
No, I hear you. Well, here's what I know.
I usually put a
Yeah.
foundation on before I put a roof on it.
Sure. Well, we did the roof is great, and that has made all the difference in the world. The grant that we got last year that put the heat pumps in, you know why those things are being advertised all over God's creation.
Yeah.
They are awesome.
They are amazing.
They are awesome. You can walk in there on a 30-degree day, which we have had, and we've been very busy at the hall. So last night it was warm, but every other night that you walk in there and you just flick the switch, and in half an hour, that whole room is warm. And then once people arrive, they don't run. I mean, those things are the bee's knees. But they were never proposed as
Maybe.
the main
right,
heat
right.
source
That's
on a bitter cold day.
That's right.
But the little furnace, if you fire up the little furnace, put a fan on the floor and turn the heat pumps on, it's 60 degrees in there when it's freezing cold outside. So they do a tremendous job, they really do. But anyway, so there's that. So the building, my house didn't have any insulation in it either. You know, my house is almost 200 years old, it doesn't have insulation, they didn't put it there. If it has a decent airspace and it's airtight enough, a modest heat source keeps it pretty warm. We're not talking about keeping it at 60 degrees every single day. Turn the furnace on when somebody's gonna use the building. And keep it just at the minimum so that the water doesn't freeze. But right now, we shut the water off, so that's not a risk. It just means, no, sorry, you can't have your Christmas party there, because the
Right.
water will be turned off by then.
Perfect for big families.
And it has been perfect for big families.
Thanksgiving.
We did, we had 100
Oh, did you?
people, yeah. A family who, they had a death in the family. They did not have a traditional funeral service at a church. They had a graveside service at one of the local cemeteries, and they had 100 people come and use the hall for their get-together afterwards. They packed everything in that they needed and took it all out when they left.
How was the parking situation for that?
Park at the post office, Howard, well, not Howard, Jeff has.
Yeah, so everything worked out there?
Yep, and we have a big triangular sign that says event parking, and it's on wheels. You just roll it down there and park it kind of where you can see it. It's a bummer when it's dark, but in the daylight, you can see it the whole way of the street, and people park there.
Good.
So, I mean, it can happen. I
Mhm.
mean, it can be done. It's just,
Not the safest for all mobilities to
Right,
get there.
yeah. You can pull right up, but if you have many with.
Yeah.
right,
it's
when
not
the
perfect,
square dancers were using the facility, they figured out how to park
Oh,
on the one side of the lawn.
yep,
But they had one family member that was wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
So they just pulled in so that they could put her wheelchair out on the sidewalk, hit the ramp, and came right in.
yeah.
Is it all open floor?
All open.
Is it wide open?
The downstairs is largely wide open. There's an
Stage.
area that used to probably be closets, but it's 2 bathrooms now. And then the stage is at the front.
You've never been in
You really need to come and
It's
see it.
beautiful.
We have some pickleballers in our town that are looking for spaces to play.
there? I'm a pickleballer.
Pickleball.
Who's pickleballing? I'm learning how to play.
We have a lady in our town that's really promoting pickleball and really wants.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, upstairs, the floor upstairs, which is where dances used to be held, is even bigger than the floor downstairs. and it actually has a shuffleboard court
Mhm.
painted on it.
Yeah, on the floor.
So, I mean, the building was in use continuously for all kinds of things. So upstairs is probably where pickleball would wanna go.
Yeah.
She reached out to me, she actually, pickleball apparently can pull in a lot of grant money right now.
It's huge right now.
This
No
might be a
kidding.
resource for one of your levels.
Mhm.
Maybe we can work together,
Yeah, really.
keep you in touch.
I can't fathom that
They
being
do it in
like
the
the
winter?
primary reason for
The-
this
the pro-
beautiful plastered ceiling.
I was thinking
you
that
know,
same thing,
This
but-
beautiful hardwood floor and this gorgeous domed plaster ceiling that's upstairs, but hey, you never know.
They might be able to
Pickleball's
bring-
just like a
they might
big
be able to
ping
bring
pong
some
ball.
money and make it a widely community activity.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we talked about contra dancing or country, country dancing.
English country dancing.
English country dancing. You know, and the Montpelier Grange brings in a lot with country dancing.
And we will blow our own horn just a little bit here because we had 2 music events 2 weeks apart, the 1st of October and the 14th of October. The acoustics in that place are lovely.
Oh, really?
Just the way it was built and the way it's been used, and you know, the 14th, which had the 2 rock bands, the comment was, this is probably the first time an amplified band has played on this stage. And people who know bands and know music and whatever have you would stand back and just say, this is beautiful. And on the 1st, our very, very accomplished musician who came literally as a one-man band just said, this place is beautiful. You know, come back, I'll come back anytime and play. So, you know, this is
Those are good money makers.
And that's what I was.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Draw
the
some
music,
money.
yeah, the music events can be big money makers.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the time of year where there isn't live music going on, like in the summertime.
Right, like
So
Tuesday Night Live, Wednesday Night Live, Monday Night Live.
Going on
you
for
know.
2 years.
Yeah, well, one of the people who attended the first music event said, I like to go see live music once a week somewhere if I can.
A lot of people do.
Okay, that's great, yeah. Just get you out and get something going on. Anyway,
Great. You consider it.
all right.
Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome. I'm glad I got to see on the map where that piece was up off Collins Pond, right? You know, you just don't know.
Go buy it.
You
Pardon?
can show up,
Go to the tax sale.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tax
I
sale.
can be at the tax sale.
That's
No,
right.
not likely if I can't drive to the property or boat to it off the reservoir.
There's gotta be
If it's
some way
really-
to get to it.
I'm sure if you asked if there's a path or whatever,
There's
but
gotta be some access that is unclear because there looks
Canoe
like
to
there's ways to it.
You
not
don't
on the
know
water.
what it
It's
is.
And
not
this
on
is
the
like
water.
getting to a place where you could walk
Right,
across the
right.
state property to it.
Right.
But then I'm thinking, you know, if I owned all the property, I'm not interested in whatever it would take to develop in there and have traffic coming back and forth. So
Just enjoy it.
what was the draw for whoever owns it to own it in the first place?
I think it was part of the Collins Pond development, so whoever owned the north side of Collins Pond was like 100 acres, and they just divided it into 5 big pieces that people bought
People bought them
Yeah.
without,
before zoning and all that
before a
stuff.
road or
Yeah.
before anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go, Dale. You, right up there, pitch tent.
Right, pitch my tent. I'll find my bones. I'll find my bones for 20 years.
I hear you.
And I'll say, well, that crazy old lady, and Ken will be right, we won't be here in 25 years. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Emergency planning?
Yeah, I'm gonna cross that one off, I'm ready. Insert town assessor update, which is a budget question as well. Last meeting, the board, along with Johnson and the last Eden Select Board meeting, so all the boards are meeting on this topic, are committing the 8 hours for Hyde Park, 8 hours for Johnson, and 4 hours for Eden to get a 20-hour position.
Good.
The Regional Planning Office has a final draft of a services agreement, which says we'll do payroll and do hiring with you guys, but we need the towns to have a rep on this what you wanna call it, like supervisory board. So the contract is basically committing the town to a 6-month term. Because the system has to be set up and everything has to be like a hiring an employee for onboarding, they didn't want towns to come and go because they didn't like what happened last week. They wanted the commitments for 6 months. So that's what the services agreement does. It commits those 3 towns right now to 6-month at least terms. The other towns that had expressed some interest, if you read the article in News and Citizen, were Eden and Elmore, but they decided to go do their own thing for now. And I think what they're doing is waiting to see. Like a lot of boards will do that. They'll just wait and see if it works out. So we're hoping that one or both those towns come in, whether it's this year or next year, because there's no new listers that are coming out on either consultant basis, and all these towns are dealing with the aging population of skilled assessors. That used to be listers, or they used to be perfectly fine 15 years ago, but the state has put so many requirements on training that they give up and they don't want to keep up with the training. That's even Julie Roletter was having trouble keeping up with the state's requirements. It really is a state program. They set the rules, they set the software, they set the deadlines. There's no local control of the state appraisal system anymore. And the state has their people, but they're not really helping the towns. They just set the deadlines and say, here's your reappraisal notice, here's your deadlines for this year's grant list. And, I'm surprised they're even having us do the school tax billing. There was a proposal last year, or a year ago, to have the state do the school
Another
tax.
couple of years, they'll be doing it all.
Right, so we see the writing on the wall, but I don't see the state backfilling state employees to do the listing stuff, to go out in the field. They're still gonna be looking for help to do that.
Right.
Hopefully they'll take the school building and we can send out our $600 town bill, and the state sends out the $2,000 school bill.
Right.
But anyway, that's a side story. So tonight we have basically a final draft of services agreement, and we have some budget numbers to talk about. This really doesn't say much. This is the services agreement, but it's really just saying regional planning is going to do something for the towns, and we're going to agree to work with them and make this thing happen. So, numbers. There's 2 numbers out there, which is the hiring range that we've talked about for the employee, which would be a municipal employee hired collectively and supervised by the Regional Planning Commission with input from the towns. So it's slightly a little complicated, but they'll be paid by the Regional Planning Commission. The Regional Planning Commission will invoice the towns for their share of hours and costs. The advertised position, which will happen hopefully end of next month, maybe in about a month, if we can get all the towns to agree, and then regional planning boards of director has to agree, and everybody's agreed. Would be an advertisement for $30 to $35 an hour, and then you add in benefits and taxes and other costs, and the bill to the town is $50 to $57.
I figured 50, yeah.
And we were anticipating 50 to 60, but we're trying to drill into it a little bit better.
Yep.
So,
And would we say 8 hours a week we were thinking we'd need?
last meeting you sort of agreed in concept to 8 hours.
8
Now we're
hours,
getting
yeah.
down to the fine tuning of agreements and commitments.
Yep.
And regional planning doesn't want to advertise and work with the towns until they have the 3 agreements. So
Sure.
I think Johnson's gonna actually vote on what you have next week, whatever their next meeting is, first meeting in November. Eden voted yes last Wednesday. So everybody's been voting on these concepts moving forward. Now it's the actual vote to sign the agreement, which is good. Numbers, okay, so the numbers, we had current budget, $11,000 in assessment budgeted. That was set before we sort of had the contract with Nemrick. So we're guessing at what the combo would be. So that was the first full year that we had no lister help. And the assessor was doing the whole thing. The actual cost for FY22, which ended this past June, was $18,600. So we're already like 7 short for 23. If you want to kind of project it, 22 will be the same
Let's know.
as 23. And we have no control over their hours here, what they do, the quality of work is a little iffy. Kim has asked for help, Chris has asked for help. There's no way to say, look, we need you to stay here and finish this because we got 3 people that need answers. Okay, send us an email, we'll get back to them eventually, kind of. So it's a little less good service
Yeah.
that the public would probably, get sick of at some point. They do catch up with people, I'm not saying there's no service.
Yeah.
But it's on the contractor schedule.
Right.
The flip around and some of the benefit is we have more control over that person as a municipal employee by this group of supervisors. And you can direct them directly. You can't direct a contractor. You give the contractor a contract, you give the employee direction. So this contract, if we do the 8 hours and if the 35 is used, it's about 24,000. So you're spending about 6,000 over what you would spend to a contractor, but that 6,000 a year gives you that, you're gonna be in the office these 4 hours to serve the public every week kind of control, which we have no control over now. So that is the short story. It all is bad because we used to have listers doing it for
What, $500?
No,
Yeah.
no, it was, we had listers that got paid at about 6,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
And that was one primary lister and a couple of helpers that did signing of things. But even at 6,000, we had $5,000 annual contract with NEMRIC to support them. So we've always had a contract related to, this isn't all new, but it was about that 11,000 where we ended up in the budget for the FY 22 and 23. And I don't know what the answer is other than that. The contract with NEMRIC is like $95 an hour. So they're a little bit more efficient, let's say, than a municipal employee who's being asked to do a lot more. So they're in the office, more personal service, less statutory. NEMRIC is doing all the statutory boxes, even though they missed a few that you guys
Right.
didn't deal with. Your
Quite a few.
E&O reports, all
Yeah.
these things that
Yeah.
should have been taken care of. But there's no reprimanding or directing that, which we would gain back for that. So there is, I would say there's a little premium for premium services, I guess, is how to look at the 18
Yeah.
to 24, if you want to shorten that whole story. And
So if we get more people coming on, then the cost will be shared more, or are we gonna be stuck with that?
You probably won't get them.
No, because
yeah, well, it will, because right now, the healthcare cost for that person
oh,
is
it's only 3
people.
towns, yeah.
So the more town, yeah, you're right, so
The cost would come
the
down.
30-35 wouldn't change, but the 56 would change.
Yeah.
Because of some of those fixed costs per employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we were hoping to get up into the 32-40, because that 50-56 would come down into the 40s, which isn't
Yeah.
all that bad.
Exactly, yeah.
We'd be almost on budget, that's what we were hoping.
Yeah.
We were hoping to get into like the 20.
20, I was thinking 20
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
we're all talking the same thing. So
Yeah.
we were looking at the 20 because we knew the contract was gonna be at 18 or 15 to 18, and we ended up at 24 because we lost the weight of the other
Yeah.
hours. If it all fails and it's terrible and the service doesn't work and the costs are too high and Johnson drops out,
Right.
we have to go back to the $95 an hour NEMRIC consultant type deal. That's the only other option.
Yeah.
There's a mandate from the state that have to be met, and I wish I had a better answer, but the regional municipal was sort of trying to split the difference while keeping some of the local services up to a higher level than the contractor. Not saying negative about the contractor, because they're managing 18 towns and they have their slot for the town,
Right.
but it's still not quite the same as having that municipal employee that does cost a little bit more than what the contract is.
So do we have to vote on it, or are we just getting information?
Yeah, no, this is a good time to decide if that sort of, let's call it the 18-6 to 24 is okay to sign the services agreement, because now we have the numbers. We only had the agreement before.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we have the agreement and the costs, and it's really kind of a service question,
care.
level service. I'm thinking that it's gonna work and we're gonna get some more
I
time.
agree with it.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think that's exactly what's gonna
This is
happen.
about our own.
Yeah.
They're gonna need it, they're gonna
Yeah,
need
that's the
to.
problem.
They're gonna need to keep up with the
Like I said, either
regulations.
We can
never
let's try
start
this, and if it
this.
works and then some other towns come in, our costs will drop,
That's right.
you know? And if
You're-
if we've tried it and if it doesn't work, we're back to $95 an hour.
You got a list who you're gonna hire? No, I mean.
There isn't
we've
any.
talked about this now for months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it
well,
is.
they've been working on
I
it. Yep.
talked to,
There you
I
go.
talked to one who used to live in Marshall, Fairleigh,
Yeah,
and he said the state's mandating so much you can't keep up.
that's right.
So,
And it doesn't, I don't think it really works with two out of three towns. 3 towns is a bare minimum. The costs
Yeah,
are
I
gonna
get
go
it for cost.
way too high if we don't have at least the 20 hours a week.
Well, I bet if it works, a couple of other towns will jump in.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
So if we did it, we'd be the first one to,
Agree to the new agreement, and then Johnson will be next week, and I think Eden was gonna meet again in the first week, because they wanted to get the numbers to their board, even though they agreed in concept to the 4 hours last week.
yeah.
We're just a little, we're maybe ahead of them,
So we're fine with it.
So, but all, the hours are all the same, right? I mean,
8 and 4
yeah, 8, 4, okay.
for 20 total.
Eden was 4?
Wolcott's 4, Johnson is 8 with us.
Oh,
So 3 patrol towns.
yeah, right?
We're really on the regional bandwagon of regional services between the ambulance,
That's true.
and the police,
Police,
and the assessor.
yeah.
It's the writings on
Yeah.
the wall that, pretty soon it'll be town administrator and zoning administrator, because it's just, they're specialized enough where you have to have somebody focus on those job duties.
Yeah,
And you can't, you do get economies of scale if you can get somebody to focus on our region. We're working regionally all the time, like Roland was talking about.
right,
There's economies of scale by towns working together.
yeah.
And I think with the state gradually like disjointing us a little bit on all these things, we're less, they give grants, but they're not giving any other support. We still have to figure out how to do everything sort of
On our
locally,
own,
and
yeah.
individually is not cost effective for a lot of this stuff.
Especially little towns.
Yeah, and it's the economics are gonna force it.
Yeah.
Over the objections of some diehard individual towns need to set their own path.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be too not cost effective anymore, like Matt was talking about earlier.
so we need a motion to accept the regional manager.
Services agreement.
Services agreement?
So move.
Second.
All in, any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstaining? Yeah.
So we'll give Brian a clean copy aside, I just wanna get it cleaned up and give it to you for
Yep.
signature.
I'll be around tomorrow if you want, or, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we got some time on that, we're just
Yeah.
gonna get it up to.
It'll be good to, you're gonna let the other two know that we,
Yeah, we're always.
they'll be
Yeah,
interested in.
So if you want to read the articles last Thursday's News and Citizen,
Yeah.
Terry Sabins, who's our mentor assessor, was really having split opinions. She's like, 20 hours is maybe not gonna work, but I know it's gonna work, So if you read the article, you kind of came away with, this is possibly gonna work, and I think that's where we still are. So that's why we're trying to communicate with everybody so that Wolcott board knows that we're on board and Wolcott joins, and we keep the 3 together, and then cross our fingers, so to speak, that we can get up to 24 hours or something.
There'll be some bugs to work out.
Yeah, so we'll keep everybody up to date. for
And
sure.
hopefully it'll be something for other towns too.
Yeah, the state of Vermont's watching us too, because they want to start using it in other areas if we can figure out all the details. Not that they shouldn't be doing this in the first place. by
Yeah,
the way.
exactly. I argued that many years ago.
We can-
As soon as
we
we went
can
to a
take away a little
statewide
bit
property
if it
tax. As soon as we went to a statewide property tax, the
Yeah.
state should have taken over a second.
Okay, moving right along,
done regional.
letter of hire,
Have professional
The
assessors.
minute taker?
come in and do
They're
it.
just pushing more and more on the towns.
That's right.
As you can see, we're doing a pilot with Justin Mason, who's, was the responder to my minute taker ad, which he politely asked, can I be the board clerk instead? Because clerk is actually a statutory job for all 3 boards, the planning commission, DRB, and select board.
Oh, okay.
When you organize, you appoint a clerk. The clerk is responsible for working on the agendas, doing the minutes, finagling the camera here for remote access, opening the meeting and trying to keep things moving with the chairs of the board. So what we want to do finally, start, and this is part of the FY24 budget too, because we're starting to look at the town administrator job that has been in place for 12 years now, which if you look at the town difference in that 12 years, you went from 1.8 to $3 million budget with no staffing changes. And that's unsustainable for me, and I'm almost guarantee you anybody else, because I am doing this with enough experience to be able to do it. But I don't wanna give it to anybody else and say, here's all the stuff you gotta do, because you won't get good service. You're not getting great service now. We have DRB members asking me to spend more time on staff reviews. Cannot do it for them. Just cannot spend the time in the land records, researching things that would help them. So they end up asking questions and I run around to try to answer things.
You're putting out fires instead of researching.
Right, instead of being sort of like complete.
Yeah.
You know, you get the same thing. Sometimes you get a long staff report, sometimes you get these little snippets.
Right.
And hopefully the snippets are worth it to you to read and catch up on, but still there could be a little bit more stuff done. So when we're talking about what that TA job is, it's the minute taking, keeping things moving, getting the agendas posted, and editing the minutes, getting them posted within 5 days, inviting the people, and I've talked to all these people over the last 2 weeks. That is time consuming. They didn't just appear. Everybody's had questions for me. Where's the documents? Where's your bond resolution? When was it talked about in public? Can I have the minutes? There's nobody else doing that. So.
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, just trying to get a couple of grant applications together on top of that. So you can see in the staff report. I'll have that for you on Tuesday night because there's no way I'm getting to it. You know, I was tracking my time last week and it's 51 hours. Like, what do I do? What do I stop at 40 and not have your stuff on Tuesday?
Right.
Or do I work Saturday and Sunday to keep things moving and get people permitted and things like that?
When I present that question to the state, they send me to a class for time management.
What?
Really?
You sent me for a class for time management.
Yeah.
Because they know everything you do during the day.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I wish there was time for even time management. The only thing I was able to do, what I'm able to do is sit down at the computer and log the topics and watch where the time goes, and I have to downsize what I should be doing, which I had this conversation with Jennifer upstairs as a new employee. She has personally decided, and with our direction, to settle into a 32 to 35 week. And I told her, don't do what I did, which is continue to say yes to 3 boards, continue to put responsibilities on that should be done by other jobs, and lose your brain thinking time. Out of that 32 hours, I want, anybody should want as an employee, at least a few hours in there to just step back and not be putting out fires all the time and responding to emails. Just sit back and think about the town structure, what you might think are improvements, and do a little research on that. But look around at what your peers are doing and don't just get caught up in coding an invoice and paying payroll. That's not gonna help the town move forward. You're not gonna be able to bring a good recommendation to the town if you don't build that into your time, even if it's not like pushing paper. Just take a break during your week. So we're trying to manage that time right now with her so that the town has a good finance manager that's not just doing the administrative stuff, but she can highlight stuff that's a problem and bring recommendations to the board, like you've seen in some of her staff reports. You know, we've got a boatload of money, I think was her term.
Yeah.
And you guys aren't doing anything with it.
I'm reading it right now and all the interest rates.
You know, you are sitting on a huge amount of cash that's sitting there at 1%. What are you guys doing, she asked me.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is on the list. We needed somebody with the time to
To
do a little
figure that
research.
out, yeah.
She said, well, I'm gonna put Edwards, right in front of Susan.
Yeah,
is the,
yep.
Is the investment schedule that she's been looking at, because she took the time to do the research, and she's looking at what the library does with their reserves and money, and she's recommending Edward Jones is the best vehicle for 6-month CDs.
Yeah.
You know,
Could
versus,
be earning some
you know,
money.
0.9 or 1.1, which is where it's sitting now.
Right.
18 months ago, I asked him why all of the town checking stuff was at 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then we got into the sweep account, which at least got us up to 1.
Right.
Yep.
And now we have to bring it to the next level. So that's when I look at what minute taker clerk does, which is time consuming, and then look at town administrator role, what the select board's been asking from the town administrator, which we can talk about in a second, which is related to highway. And the 13 open grants we have, and we just added 2 more tonight. There's too much.
Yeah.
But not too much that the town shouldn't be doing. And there's a difference to that. So you can have enough to do where the board says, we're done. We're gonna get out of these grants, and we're just gonna go bare bones operating budget, which is how it was done, in the sixties and seventies or whatever. Now everything is done from grants. If you wanna do MRGP projects or like class 2 high, everything the state is doing now with money is coming through the grant program, which takes time to apply and, get that managed and have Jennifer set up so she knows it's coming, and ARPA money is a huge 2 or 3 year project that we're not even, we're accounting for it because it's 100% reimbursable for administrative time. But those are projects that need to move somehow. So 13 grants are their own projects, ARPA is 13 on its own. I don't know how you're gonna, as a board going forward, gonna handle that without trying to break up the town administrator jobs to deal with that. Part of that is what we're looking at with Mr. Mason next door here, is trying to keep up with this and get introduced to everybody. So I don't know, have you gotten everybody's name yet? You wanna go around the circle?
Justin Mason, Brian,
Brian.
Chastity, Sharon,
Susan?
Susan,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's right, yeah.
Close, Roland, and Matt.
It's pretty good.
Well, I know,
And
right?
he hasn't run screaming yet, which is a good sign.
That's true.
too. I'm ready to run
Welcome to
screaming.
a good training tonight.
So typically how we would do it is the applicant would apply, we'll talk about it generally, just so you know, somebody's applied, which is what's happened, so it's on the agenda. And then executive session, we talk about rates of pay and benefit stuff, which isn't much for on-call part-time people, but
Right.
still. You could do that and then come out with a letter of hire that Brian would sign when you come out of session and offer the job, and you basically accept it by showing up for work. That's how that would work. Which will be a great relief, so I can start to focus on those other things that I was talking about before, which is what does the board want to see with those town administrator hours and part of the 24 budget. So
He would take on the role for all the boards,
yeah,
the three boards.
clerk for the 3,
Clerk for the 3, okay.
How's he gonna develop minutes?
develop minutes.
Or agenda, I mean. Minutes are easy, the agenda.
Yeah,
So right now, all of our agenda items are basically like,
that's a town administrator job.
yeah,
The planning commission has 1 or 2 topics. The DRB has scheduled hearings. So the agendas sort of set themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not complicated.
so what about us?
The town administrator has to set the select board agenda because it's a higher level of stuff that's daily and needs to be put on the
Okay.
agenda with the chair. I don't see any other reason. Now, I may send a draft agenda for posting and inviting people and do that part
Right.
of it.
Yeah,
Or making changes like we had with one person that wanted to get off the agenda, and we had to work on the weekend to figure out that and get it off the agenda and repost the agenda. That stuff I shouldn't be doing on a Saturday,
right.
but we did it because
Yeah.
nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that the clerk really would be doing, not setting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down on this. Because some of those are brought forward for building an agenda, others are new that walk in the door during the 2 weeks. And other ones are self-initiated by the department and say, hey, we need to get a reserve article on the select board's horizon, come in tonight, and Dale talked about the reserve for buildings, which we don't have for any town building. So,
When am I gonna move?
Okay.
When am I gonna move?
So back on what we're gonna do about administration. So we have Jennifer settling down to what, at some point, she's gonna get capped and not be able to take any of the town administrator stuff. So I was doing double with finance, doing payroll and accounts payable during the conversion or the changing of guard. She has taken on those core jobs and doing very well and moving forward into investments and trying to get the finance committee started. And at some point, she's gonna be capped. And what I mean by that is she's gonna have a schedule that works for the town and she's getting things done, and she'll pick on smaller pieces to come up and make recommendations on as they come up. Plus, she'll reserve some time to do her thinking and looking at things from sort of a step back, so she can look into the finance and figure out where soft spots and problems are. The minute taker, person, clerk would be on the side and away from the town administrator job. So that leaves planning, zoning, select board, highway kind of stuff, those categories. Under select board, I put all the projects, community development, all other committees, other than those three. Giant Valley Hall
Yep.
committees, community circle, the art project, whatever those things are that take up time. But I see a difference in planning and zoning. So planning and zoning is a sort of a training position, if you will. There's people that get masters in planning. Not so much zoning, because that's sort of the back, that's underneath the planning degrees. And see that position as potentially a spur off to, a 24-hour type position. We mentioned that last meeting.
Mhm.
This select board needs really are what you want. So let's say you have a zoning regulation and you have a town plan, you need the planning zoning to support the DRB and planning commission, and you have a clerk that supports those boards. They should be good for the long term with that kind of support. And they would operate almost independently. What's left are the highway grants, community development, community committees, relations to state agencies, all those other things that select board is really involved with. And how do you want to partition that out? If you had a spin-off of, let's say, 4 hours a week for clerk support to all three boards, I'm just trying to say big numbers, and you had 24 hours of planning, zoning, focused time on planning and zoning and getting all those things. There are planning and zoning administrators that do just that. I think Hyde Park is the only town left that doesn't have a separate zoning administrator from manager and administrator. Then you have everything else. What level of commitment do you want to see from the town administrator, other than working on the board to keep all the projects going? Because I think that's the main rule, is to keep the town moving forward, even if they're delegating it to the planning and zoning person. Just like we had tonight, who was it that said, you guys control the planning commission? Sort of, not exactly.
Right.
But you could say, town administrator, what the planning commission working on, can you make sure they take up this issue? Or the board can go to the planning commission meeting and do the same. Some boards on the planning commission have a select board member, for example. We don't do that. So if that planning commission and the clerk and the board, the DRB are working fine, we've had many discussions, going back to Dave Gagne, about road commissioner and job duties for highway, and how much control, just like, directing projects, ordering things fixed, because there's a complaint, doing sand a different way, 1,000 different things that the select board has taken an interest in over the years that really shouldn't be taking up select board time. You're elected officials to lead the town, not to fix roads necessarily on an individual basis. You're supposed to be doing the big picture stuff. Do we have enough equipment to move that sand in 2 weeks? Do we have enough labor to meet our needs for snow emergency? Those are the issues, not whether or not a mailbox was replaced in a week's time because somebody's calling you personally. That should be done differently. And the solution to that might be that you have a town administrator that has more highway time. Make sure that person is on the work site for Beth Bailey's driveway. Make sure that person is watching the Percy cut on Center Road and not Dave Gagne and Brian Jacket up there taking pictures. Those kind of examples. If you're occupied with day-to-day stuff as a board, elected board, select board, you're not gonna be looking at some of these bigger issues and you're gonna have missed opportunities just as easily as having 2 meetings a month and not getting to your initial idea, which was to take a meeting a month and focus on long-term issues.
And there'll never be enough time in the day to get all of the events figured out. I mean, no, in your position alone, like taking time to go over there, but then the DRB, in my opinion, we should talk about our long-term, our growth plan, which, we can generate that, and that's where your focus comes into things. That's my take on it. What we want to focus on, whether it's the development or whatever it is.
I tried to do that a couple of years ago because I asked both the planning commission and the select board. I said, we need to look future-wise. North Hyde Park, what do you want to do up there? And this is more directly to the planning commission. They agreed that, and there was a full board there, They agreed for 2 years they would focus on North Hyde Park. They initiated the decentralized wastewater plan. They initiated those branding things with planning commission grants. So things actually happened when that planning commission took the long-term view. And Roland's exactly right. Some of those long-term views take time. You're not gonna get a parking lot by ignoring the fact that you have ARPA money that could buy a parcel of land to move the building. Roland sort of mentioned, you know, tonight you mentioned it as an idea, but you're not even talking about whether Roland's, you know, in left field or if that's a real project. So you don't have the time to do it when you have, you know, call it miscellaneous or high priority from an individual level. You don't have that time from staff to go deal with it. Mark doesn't have time to sit by the contractor and
On
watch it.
top of being on one of the hardest fiscally responsible years in history. I
Exactly.
mean, we're headed into a budget season that's gonna be far beyond our budget. So
Every little piece that you see over the next few meetings is gonna add up to a big number.
Yeah.
it's a huge number. And that's why, like a lot of our decisions in the past, being fiscally responsible is something I think that we have to represent.
So I'm trying to set the stage for a real discussion about where the town is gonna be led by the select board, not individuals, but by the collective 5 members here. Saying that going forward from here, we are gonna be concerned about the big picture. The Hyde Park town plan has lots of goals in there. You know, land banking for housing, we don't talk about that, but that's a high priority use in ARPA money. You know, there's lots of things on the table that, like, and Susan's looked at me a couple of times, you know, where is the time on the agenda? You have to make time for the agenda. Part of that is having the town administrator role coming at you, sort of like I've been trying to get Jennifer to do. If you see something in finances, you need to be reporting that to the select
So
board.
here's Edward Jones, right?
You need to be getting that to the board. If I see some things that aren't being done on the long-range planning, I need to have time to research and present it to you. Otherwise, you're gonna show up at a meeting and deal with hot fires and not even touch Hyde Park's future.
Right.
You're just
Right, how do we take
distracted
all this
by it.
money and invest it?
So that's my opening statement for the budget, because if we can spin off and have 3 positions, this just, you know, is one position that never should have been combined with town administrator.
Right. That should.
Worrying about typing minutes and getting them posted in 5 days is nothing a paid, you know, senior town administrator should be doing. It's just not right. It's a bad use of the time. So what's left to me is 2 positions really that we're talking about, which is the planning and zoning piece, which is its own skilled position to work directly with the planning commission and DRB, making sure that applicants take a lot of time. You may say, oh, how many hearings did the DRB have? They have 1 coming up, let's say. That could be 3 months. We had 1 hearing last week. Prep for that started in mid-July.
Right.
And that was almost a weekly conversation with either the attorneys, the real estate people, the landowners, the DRB members trying to schedule that and all that stuff. Very limited time to do a thoughtful approach on your needs, and then you don't talk about it in a meeting. So it's a cumulative burnout for the person, and it's also a cumulative hardship on the community looking forward. You're the ones that are only ones that are looking at it collectively forward. There's nobody else on any board that has that role other than the select board. And the more distracted you get day-to-day stuff, the less the community benefits in the long run.
Agreed.
So it's, all right, stop talking for a minute, Ron.
Okay.
That's a former chair permission slip. Yeah.
No, Susan was jealous. She hasn't gotten a word in it.
Yeah, right. I'm like going, it's too much information coming at 8:30. I'm going, okay.
Oh, I
that's right.
understand that. I apologize. for that.
No, well, that isn't your fault, you know. It's, but again, as I see, if you look at, Justin takes care of this chunk of it, and then you find a planning person, but then that person helps, as you're talking about, that helps the planning commission and the DRB actually do their jobs
And that would
do
be
the
how many
homework and
people
the
in the
stuff that
office?
they need. Well, you go.
No, only 1.
Well, yeah, what you're looking, you have a minute taker.
We have 1.
You take, basically what you're doing is taking Ron and splitting him in 2.
Right.
So that you got the planning and zoning.
That's one
okay?
person.
Yeah, is one person, and then you'll have your town administrator, that again, you're looking at, does that person become more like
No.
a part of it? Yeah, the town administrators become.
No,
What?
he's saying the town administrator is getting broken up into these different positions.
Well, yeah, but it's still,
The
you're
hours
still
are
gonna
the
have the hours. The town administrator is still gonna be a town administrator.
there's still a job
And you're gonna have
title.
a planning and zoning person. And you got Justin. So you're taking,
Oh, I guess I just had that as.
So you're looking
Okay.
for the clerk. So you got,
Well, it's 4 hours a week for the clerk. That's what we're talking about, the 4 hours.
that will be the start of it. 4 hours.
Well, that's my guess.
He's
is
not in the
what-
office though.
Yeah, this is a meeting room stuff. There's no office requirement for that.
But that's what I'm saying. It starts out at 4 hours.
We've had this position advertised for 2 years, Ron.
I know.
Totally.
I know
So,
it.
like, don't even think about that position. That should have been filled forever ago.
yeah, years ago.
I mean,
But I'm just saying.
what are you saying?
Yeah, what are you saying?
We've got
Spit it
1,
out.
2, 3, 4 in the office now, right?
Kim and
Well, you
Krista
gotta-
don't count in
yeah,
what we're talking
'cause
about right now.
They aren't us, they're the
They
town.
aren't us. They don't
That's the
count.
town clerk
So
position.
we got 2, plus we'll have 1 for 4 hours a week.
Well, they won't be in the office.
He won't be in the office. but
This
he'll be
that
here.
doesn't count. That's been like a lister position that we've been looking for since what, 3
No,
years?
are you trying to get hours or what?
He's trying to complain about how many people
How
are in
many
the
are
office.
in the office, that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
always
I
like,
don't-
Oh, you're
Not
growing the
saying
size
it
of the
that way.
office,
In
right?
the office or what? I don't.
Yeah.
I think you're adding one more. You'd just be you'd be
Yeah.
Ron as town administrator and then adding the zoning person as well.
exactly.
And then there'd be me, but I wouldn't actually be in the office.
Right. So there'd be 3 of you guys in the office for,
No,
No.
not exactly. So,
Well, yes, there's the finance person, the planning and zoning person, and the town administrator.
yeah, so in the
Right?
office, well, I'm
The
talking about
three,
in the
right.
office, I'm not talking about full-time people though. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Right.
This is 4.
right.
Planning zoning is 24. And then I'm trying to get out from you, how much time do you want to put in the town administrator role? That's what we're trying to talk about. Because if we could go down to 24 itself, it could go to 32 or 24 if you don't want some of these things.
I would
done.
think the town administrator would be 40 hours a week.
No, because we're carving out all this other work, so it wouldn't be 40 hours anymore.
But
We're
I bet you get
carving
it
this-
to 32, I bet you
We're
get
not
it to
looking
4
ahead.
days. Yeah, well, yeah.
We're not looking ahead.
Well, you haven't
This
been.
town is growing all the time.
Well, see, and that's what I tried to open this with. You haven't been doing your job looking forward to know that I was doing too much and I was failing to communicate to you that I was doing too much.
I am. I'm looking ahead, but some people aren't looking ahead.
No, I'm going back to when I was hired. You
Right.
asked a lot at that level, which was okay.
But look how much has been put on you and.
Now we're like, what do we do about this? You
Yeah.
cannot put somebody new in that 40-hour
That's
job
right.
and have to do the same thing.
That's right.
And I'm not suggesting 2 40-hour jobs at all. That's not what I was intending to do.
It's not needed.
It's not needed at 2 40s. 24 should well cover the planning and zoning needs for Hyde Park right now and have that person really participate on the planning grants, the DRB staff reviews, and all the things that go along with communicating with all the applicants and doing the zoning permits. That should be a nice set job that person should feel comfortable in and meet all the needs and be able to support those 2 things.
Can you just look ahead and see what the next 5 to 10 years is?
Oh, yeah. If the Hyde Park continues to grow.
That's right.
you're
Then that
gonna
will
be-
turn into a 40-hour position,
Right.
But only if it needs to.
only if it needs to. That person could grow into that
Yeah,
position.
each board is gonna be, I mean, that's part of my fault too, because I haven't gone to you and sort of raised the issue of what you're asking the town administrator to do. I could have done that probably 4 or 5 years ago when I saw the pressure start coming on, and COVID just blew it all out of the water too. Because that made a lot of changes. So now that we're sort of settling in post-COVID, I'm like able to focus on your future, right? And where you should be, and right now, you should be at the 24, the 4, and what are we gonna do about the TA with all those job duties that are still left, which is all the grants, which partially are funded, so it's not like a total expense to the town. And whether that's a 24 or 32 is what I'm thinking, that's kind of where I'm sitting.
What about the highway stuff?
There you go. That's where I was going.
Right, so
Thank you.
what, and this goes back 4 or 5 years
I
too.
was just waiting for the right time.
what is the list of job duties that the select board doesn't want to do anymore?
I'll be completely honest. I think the select board, I'm new to this. So for me to come in and try to pick up all this past education, it is a lot.
We're gonna give you one more meeting and you can't use.
You can't use that excuse anymore.
I still am new. I'm still learning. You guys, I hear this 3 years ago, 2 years ago. You think I might watch meeting minutes from 2 years ago?
Exactly.
You're wrong. Every decision we're making
Bumped
is
up there
something
pretty
from
good.
2.5 years ago. Every person that was over there talked about the land that was 3 years ago.
Okay,
So
sorry,
30 years
Matt.
ago.
30 years ago.
Yeah, I have to
couldn't
literally ask
resist,
Ron
'cause
almost
you
every
said it
question.
like 5
I'm like,
times tonight.
what's the background on this? Because I don't know the background. And
That's all right.
Are we gonna get 5 minutes out of
There's
that?
I know, right?
six
Sorry.
years I've been trying to get an extra man up there to the highway department.
But-
And every year I get shot down.
But bottom line,
Do it this year. Mark needs the person.
here's my
I'm
thought.
trying.
We've wanted to.
We should not be micromanaging the small stuff.
I agree.
Us as a board, especially as someone like myself walking in, it takes so much past history to make a real vote on shit. Excuse my language.
We got it. They did too.
You know, I just,
Well, you're right, and if the meeting time were spent
Focus
on not the little nitty gritty stuff, but in the theory as we were going to be able to have to be able to start at 6 o'clock and have an hour-long conversation about these positions would be much more sane than trying to start it at 20 after 8.
But you know what? Believe it or not, we should be advertising right now for Ron's position.
Well, we have to know what
Well,
the
that's why
position
we're
is.
trying to break it
Right.
up
That's
and
to do
Break
that.
it down so
That's
we
what
can
I'm saying.
figure out what
Right,
it's gonna-
that's exactly why we're trying to do this.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is
it
what
would
we're
take
trying to
2
do.
years to find
And
something.
so Ron has been, from my understanding, you've been calculating your hours on every task you've been doing.
Right.
And so from that, we should be able to draw up some sort of a job description, and the expectations of that job.
I think we're looking, bottom line, going back to this conversation a few minutes ago, we're looking for a two-person position.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm seeing.
Potentially 3 for highway,
More
if
of
we
a
include
Town
highway,
administrator,
zoning, and planning.
zoning, planning.
And then,
Right.
The highway.
And then a road commission.
The missing piece has been a sort of thorn in my side, and Dave Gagney's, probably a little bit with Roland's, not sure, is what do you all want to do with the road commissioner? So every time that came up since 2016, I've asked the board, the road commissioner job is a replacement by job title of the select board duties of roads. So select board, if there's no road commissioner and you run the town, a lot of small towns, select board makes a lot of decisions, and Hyde Park did up and through the 80s, pretty much, until we started to move out of that in the mid-90s. The select board is making a lot of day-to-day decisions. They go up and meet with people and settle disputes and order the crew to do something, and Ron LaFredi was perfectly happy to go and drop everything and go deal with that fire. We've moved past that, at least partially moved past it.
Well,
not
yeah,
totally.
population was only 500 then.
right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's so true, you knew everybody in town.
what does the select board want from the town administrator related to roads that you would agree not to engage with anymore? And I think that will determine whether that town administrator takes on direct, what you would potentially call select board duties. A resident calls you up. They just drove by that grader and left a big ditch. What do? Do you go up and take a picture and go visit with that person and talk to them about the grader operator and Jason and all that stuff? Or do you just send it to Mark French, which you all agreed about a month and a half ago to do, which was, if there's any complaints, then go right to Mark French so he can triage it. And that hasn't happened. In all cases, some cases it does, but Mark will complain. I'm hearing about second and third hand stuff.
Yeah.
And I need to, so does the town administrator take your referral directly? And then you have the time allocated to the town administrator to know that that's the person that goes out and takes the picture, analyzes the situation, comes up with a resolution, and fixes it, so it never makes it to your board again. That's the kind of responsibility I'm asking about. Because if you can delegate that type of responsibility, whether it's called town administrator / road commissioner, and you all agree to step back, then that gives you the time to focus on your long-term planning and not worry about, Mary up on some back road that has an issue with the highway crew. Because you're gonna have somebody dedicated.
Or,
But
Or
But-
what?
Or but,
or we hire another.
our phones ring at our place. And it's our job to take care of
No,
the
When they
tax.
call and bother you.
No, it isn't,
No.
that isn't your job to go
That's
out and
not
look at the
true.
road.
If-
Your job
yeah.
is to say, I'll talk with the road commissioner or the whoever you're supposed to talk to, and
And
they'll
then
take
if you
care of
don't
it.
get done, what happens?
You
Then it's the
still
board.
talk to them.
Well, then it'd be a
Yeah,
board
then it's the
decision.
whole
Back to the
board, but
board.
not an individual
But,
board
but,
member.
but I
that
think,
do
I
it.
think once you have that commissioner, it should go
Right.
right on,
Yes.
right on the web
Right.
page. And then we do make the bigger decisions.
Right. And when somebody calls you, you say, we've changed, we've got a road commissioner that does it. I'll give them
I
a call
agree
for
with
you
that.
and have you
I
call.
agree with
That only works.
But we don't have one now.
No, we don't. That's
Roland, but that change only works if every board from going forward with this new job done agrees that that's the way it happens. You can't put somebody in that position and then a week later find out there's a complaint filed with one of the board members that promised something. That does not work. And I don't know if the board members are really trained in doing that or not, to help
No,
out
I,
that person.
I think that
No.
person, that road commissioner, has to be an excellent communicator.
I was
too.
gonna say public relations. You have to have public relations.
Right,
And that comes down to same thing. I mean, we all work for the town, so we can't tell people to piss up the road either. So we have to make our permits pass, and we have to make the constituents, it works for them. Yeah.
But
so-
I think, because I think I asked this at the last meeting, because I wasn't kind of really positive of how road commissioner worked or whatever, but if the town administrator if we're thinking that town administrative position would be more of a road commissioner, that obviously now becomes a full-time job. So
100%.
why
It
wouldn't,
it can be, and that's what I'm hesitating because you haven't tried it before.
right,
The
but
delegation
we want
of-
something more for highway.
Right, the delegation of your authority to the road commissioner needs to be clarified, and we haven't talked about what that actually
Now-
is yet.
Because that could fit
I
with
think
Mark.
a road commissioner, this is my opinion,
Yeah, this is a list.
No.
that this is a road commissioner would get in contact every day with the road foreman. What's the jobs? What are you gonna do? And everything. And then is there any complaints that I need to go on today?
And
don't-
setting up tomorrow. Hey, you're
Right.
going to this ditch line.
That's
Let's
right.
put out public notice. Knock on this door,
Right.
knock on this window, leave the note. We're gonna be here tomorrow. There's gonna be this traffic stop. There's gonna be this. There's gonna be one-way traffic there,
That
here.
is way different than we do right now, but that's a good clarity of what I was asking.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we don't do that now.
We
No,
ran
we don't have the-
into,
right.
we ran into two different good case studies I could talk about recently. One was the Center Road project, where we put a few notices out and tried to get everybody ready for that, because it was being done in phases, and it was gonna take all summer. And it was a big disruptive project for the culverts first, and then the paving job of the reclaim. Very limited individual notices, right? But it was more global notices that we tried to keep everybody up. And I took the complaints and dealt with them on an individual basis. So that was how that worked. Prospect Street, we had Peter Danforth involved from the Lamoille County Conservation District, who coordinated the neighbors, and the neighbors still complained that we weren't giving timely updates on every couple days of what was gonna happen next, even though it was a long-term project with minimal disruption to their neighborhood. They still demanded a much higher level.
I will say, I can tell you, because I do a lot of public relations at my job, and I will say that when you give them this much, they want this much more information. I will say that is a true statement. But if we have the person in that role, at least they can
And
capture.
I'm not objecting to that, but there has to be the resources here with that person, whether it's a little bit of more posting on the website, getting an email list, which we were asked for on Prospect Street, but getting the information. I think it was Scott Griswold who said, look at what Morristown does with notices when they're doing Garfield. How come we don't do that? He said that at one of your meetings.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Because they got a
But-
lot more people.
That's right. But Mark's job is gone way above what he's supposed to be doing. Because a road foreman, you look it up, a road foreman, a working road foreman is supposed to work with the men. Then you have, well, a highway superintendent. That's what a
Some-
lot
yeah.
of your towns
In
have got.
between the board
Because
and the
once you
board.
put a road commissioner into place, a road commissioner's got more power than the select board.
Well,
Not if we
You
put
look
that
that
in
up.
place.
No, it
you're
depends
almost,
on
you're
your-
almost
Look that
there.
up.
What if we hired it
Roland,
differently though?
you're almost there.
I
Under
know I
state,
am.
under state law, the road commissioner is authorized to do whatever delegation the board does. So that removes those,
yeah.
that, he doesn't get to pick and choose. He's only authorized, or she is only authorized and delegated specific duties by the board that the board gives up. So
But
the road commissioner's up here at that point because they're delegated the select board powers and the board can't really interfere too much of that at that point.
And that's
It's kinda like
why,
Ron now.
that's
You know,
why a
it's
lot of your
like-
towns will go highway superintendent.
Oh, and then it's foreman and working
You're
foreman.
Working foreman.
Is what we have
I know.
now.
Structures.
For years, I did
Structures.
both ends,
Okay.
and it's too much for one person. Believe me. Mark,
Mark doesn't have any time to go, keep
Right.
Prospect Street updated every 3 days.
that's right.
Right.
He doesn't have time to sit and watch Beth Bailey's, which might have been a problem. There was a little bit of, can I sit here and make sure that the contractor's not delayed so I can wait for him to make sure that apron's done the right way? He's out doing a culvert.
Right.
So I still think a highway superintendent might be the way to,
That's another
Okay.
option. It's another option. It's like a hybrid between commissioner and foreman. It's more elevated in day-to-day stuff. And that superintendent still needs time to do the PR and the nice stuff and do stuff that Matt was talking about, because the public is only left with either trying to get my time, which is already thin, or go to the board members for action. And Brian has said it before, if you can't get action by your staff, give me a call. Here's my phone number. That shouldn't be the role of a chair of the select board. I mean, it shouldn't be, not that you're doing it wrong, I'm just saying, you're
No,
forced to do
you
that.
shouldn't have to
You
do
feel
that.
like you're forced to do that.
Yeah.
It's old school too.
and this is
It's
looking
here,
ahead.
You know, like.
Right.
Here's your
like-
answer.
Yeah, people like that, they then we feel like you're there for them and.
Because another 5 years, things are gonna be a lot stronger around here
Of
for
course,
that highway department.
What do you just just the rules? Look at your regulations you've gone through. Look at your stormwater permits that we're dealing with. Look at all that. Staying in regulation is 10 times more. Vermont statute has changed 10 times.
Then when
Last-
you
It
have a
changes every
Halloween
year.
storm come in, you
Right.
got your superintendent, can do all the stuff that Mark's trying to do, plus the work, plus the paperwork when he gets back,
Exactly.
put everything in order. It's a big thing.
Yeah, some of those events, the COVID event, the Halloween storm,
Yeah.
takes a lot of town resources, staff-wise. And we're still recovering from that, the Halloween storm and
And,
COVID.
and it's nobody's fault, it's just a lack of help.
Right.
So,
So I think we need to get Mark in here and discuss also what he wants to shed and what he wants to keep. I think that'd be important.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't alienate him either in the process, but I do think we should have a superintendent rather than a commissioner. And
Well, then is that part of the town administrator's position, or are we then talking an additional position? Because I wouldn't think
No,
a
that-
road superintendent wouldn't be
you could, but
full-time.
if you're
It's
gonna-
not full-time.
If you're gonna look ahead 4 or 5 years,
Well,
we're gonna
but
be right
you-
back where we are.
And I think we need this
Susan,
position.
we have a lot of part-time stuff that happens, so maybe he fills in some of that part-time role.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we do a lot of part-time stuff, so maybe,
No, like-
make it a 40-hour position.
I can't remember that guy that applied from Cambridge, remember? You remember him?
Yeah.
When we hired Mark?
Yeah.
There, right there.
he was the manager type person.
Yes.
He wasn't the road foreman.
Right.
So we're running up against this issue.
Can't
which
remember
I'm
his name.
Really happy, even though Susan's at the end of her day, to have the conversation, because I think if you can focus on what your objective is, then we can backfill the information you need to make a final decision during this budget season, which was my goal. So just a side note on the retirement, for financial reasons, it helps me to stay through the June, just for my retirement, just to let you know, that's if there was one goal, which was the.
you heard it, June.
Well, we've known that.
But
I said that. Oh,
if
I was
we-
like,
But I want the 24 budget, which starts in July, to start to do some of these things so the board can really focus on Hyde Park when I'm either part-time on call or whatever while the transition goes on or gone. because I see that we're at that point, from a governmental
Right.
governance point.
But if we
We're at
don't,
that point of making that decision.
if we don't start advertising, I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
know
we still,
some.
we have to figure out.
But we
Right.
need to figure out these
Right.
positions, and then,
But
yeah, I think
I'm
we
just
should.
saying,
Yeah.
there's been towns looking for a town administrator for 2 years now.
So I
Yeah,
think we
Colchester
need
does
something
really
tangible from you, something tangible.
Yeah, so the progression would be to really try to confirm whether you wanna talk to Mark about that role. And probably confirm with the planning and DRB people that they want the 24 hour, cause I just wanna make sure that they know that you're
That's
thinking about
in
making a
place,
change.
Yeah,
And that's an easy quantifiable job description, a lot of examples I have about how that would work, so that's not a huge mountain. That's just a willingness from the board to make the change and have the boards ready for that. And I know I've been asked by a couple board members to spend more time on that, but I can't.
Yeah.
So I know that they would want somebody to sort of call their own, if you will. And then the town administrator thing is really contingent on what Mark, have this meeting with Mark on highway only. That would be my next recommendation.
Yeah.
Then we can start to put tangible numbers on it and job descriptions over the next couple months to get that ready for, really
For
fine tuning
budget,
for the budget
yeah.
and finalize.
yeah.
Now, you mentioned, sorry, I know I keep asking questions. You mentioned grants. Is that something that Jen could do and put her at 40 hours?
And that would be something to look forward, Chastity, your highway superintendent.
Could do
that.
grants, potentially? Oh, okay.
Well, superintendents, I found,
I wasn't sure.
that do grants still have some office help. Because they're also out doing highway work, but they might do the research for a grant, they might have some development of the grant, but there's always gonna be some office support person that works with them, like the town administrator.
Yeah, when we do
Okay.
that marking, we're gonna make sure that he knows what the purpose is, and if he could have something, to present
Well,
maybe,
you got all the grants
for hourly,
besides highway.
what,
What's that?
Yeah.
You get all the grants
Oh,
besides
everything,
highway.
so,
Right.
Yeah, it's not just highway grants that we're talking about here, it's all
No,
kinds
no,
of
it's
grants.
all,
Yeah.
it's
Any
all.
grant.
Yeah, that's
Well,
not,
for the
that's not
different
going to a
committees.
superintendent.
Yeah, no, I think the grant question will become clear when we get more into the details.
Well, yeah. But, your superintendent could do the highway grants.
Yeah, Mark is
Yeah,
doing
right.
some, Mark does some now, like if we have a stormwater project, he helps on the.
Oh, okay.
He
Okay,
helps
so that's
on the-
already being
He helps the
done.
management of the contractor and he produces all the data that I need to close out the grant. So
But
he's
that
already-
would take the load off of Mark.
Right.
If you give it to,
Well, you're talking about workload, the fifth person is a workload question, because we can't run all the equipment that we have all the time.
right,
What do you do about traffic control is the biggest elephant, because either you're gonna run a safe work site or not, and that's, a lot of towns don't.
what
do
I
it.
used to do for traffic control, right?
Put some signs up. Put a tractor across the road, that's,
No,
Yeah, there you
No,
go.
that ain't what I did. I had people out there.
so that's, for tonight's purposes, if Mark can come into a meeting, that would be my next recommendation, just to talk. And then, I can talk to the DRB and planning commission about that 24 and see if that's something they envision is good. And then we'll have more information at the, each meeting to keep. I don't wanna take it off the agenda, because there's too many moving parts, but I don't
Yeah.
wanna, even though I did it tonight, I don't really wanna overwhelm you.
at this time, we couldn't afford to take it on at all. We're gonna need to keep,
Ron,
Don't overwhelm me if
and
you.
let's put this as an outline, Ron, let's put it on an outline, like, this is my hours, what I work on, this is it.
I just did. I wrote it right down.
and that's what I was.
We've seen what the meeting minutes turn into.
I
You forget about people.
I forgot about Mark.
know. I
Yeah.
know, right? Mark it wrong.
It must have been after
Oh, yeah.
8:32.
It was.
God, yeah.
Well, I had it written. It was just up here in the corner.
So we had flood resilience,
Oh,
and we
shoot.
had the brick.
Yep,
So brick grant, 2 years ago, the select board approved the application to go in. About a year ago, you voted to pay the 25% match, which was required.
2 years ago.
See, all you guys voted on this. See, I'm the only one that doesn't
No, I
understand
didn't.
what he's talking
I'm bringing
about.
it up. So it's Building Resiliency in Communities grant from FEMA. So every FEMA grant seems to have this resiliency
You
component.
should have run
Yes,
2
they
years
do.
ago.
This is a scoping study for the Wickham Island Bridge
Oh, that's right.
Okay,
and
right,
the
for
Garfield,
resiliency.
and the Garfield Green River.
Yep.
we're working with regional planning, who's actually managing the grant, because I don't have time to add this one. So the town signed and approved a services agreement with regional planning to manage the grant. All I need to do is bring this kind of stuff to you and pay the bills, which is good. We did an RFP, we had 3 responses, 1 backed out at the end. Of the final 2, we selected the most qualified, which is DuBois King.
Took 2 years.
Within the grant budget.
Oh, great.
So now we have a services agreement from DuBois King. That needs somebody authorized to sign the services agreement.
I make a motion to let Brian sign the Du Bois and King services agreement for
Under the
the
BRIC grant.
for the BRIC grant.
BRIC.
I obey, and I failed to pay attention because
Because you're talking.
Rolly chirped into me anyways, I blame it on him because it
You
wasn't
gotta
me.
do this again, she's gonna have to go down and sit between you.
I'll be nudging them.
So,
I think you took it
what's
It's
the amount?
something that is,
What's the amount of money?
it came in,
Okay,
it came in with the grant money,
Okay.
so you're good.
I'm good.
I know what you're concerned about, and you don't have a concern on this one.
Okay, I'm frugal.
I know,
Especially
it's
if we're
good.
coming
You
into
should
this time of the
be.
year. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
right.
be frugal.
You should be frugal. So do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Yeah. Can I abstain just because I'm uneducated?
Yes, you could, you
Okay.
can.
I'm just gonna abstain
Okay.
because I have no fucking clue what we're talking about. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just feel like I'm
Roland,
I'm
control him,
lost.
you're the senior person down there.
Well, I just feel like I'm lost.
Yeah, but there are 4 others with you and we are too, so it's.
I'm sorry.
Just sign it.
And you have town people come in and just
Oh,
say that I
Susan.
spent $1 million. I
What
don't
you
even know what
just said?
I don't even know what I spent it on.
And I don't care if they hear it. Oh my gosh. You can tell we're tired.
All right, fine.
Sign there, and then I'll do it.
We're all getting giddy. Oh,
Chair of the
goodness.
board, chair of select board.
I gotta watch this one.
Is this like a donation or something? Like when you read this warrant and it's like Lamoille County Conservation to the library, is that like a donation? Do they give donations?
Who's that?
Like on the library, there's a line on Lamoille County Conservation.
They probably came in and did a demonstration or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because Amy does
They do
different
little
things.
workshops.
Amy does
Yeah.
workshops all the
Okay.
time down there.
okay.
Yeah, I would guess.
Again, I'm getting
Guessing.
educated. I didn't know.
I'm guessing. That's
Ask
what
questions.
Yeah. I asked a lot of them. I just
You
feel
start
like.
repeating yourself, then we got a problem.
Yep.
He's doing that.
The only thing I'm repeating is I don't know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I'm new here. I'm new here.
here and I don't know what I'm talking about, right.
Just don't do some of the work.
Am I gonna say that?
The other item for grants,
Sorry. Rollies can't even control himself down there.
Look at it.
Oh, goodness.
the other one is flood resiliency grant, which is.
Pay attention, boys.
Flood resiliency, again, right, is a federal FEMA grant, 100% funded, except for the administrative time, of course, which they don't pay back. For the town to work with FEMA staff, which is Vermont staff out of Montpelier, to identify buyout projects in designated flood zones. And you'll hear about it in a lot of towns. They have lots of money that they're trying to apply to towns. And have projects come forward on a totally volunteer basis. The only caveat is if the FEMA people work with these landowners, the town would agree to get the land when the house is removed and manage it as open space, recreation, or community type.
On that
So,
property.
on that
Oh,
property.
okay.
A lot of properties going, almost every town has some idea of that. I don't know of any in Hyde Park that have been done. But this would be the buyout of, the concept is the North Hyde Park 100C intersection there with like Larry DeMars on that
Oh,
corner, which is a vacant building, junkyard, sort of stuff there. And then,
Potential hazard,
potential brownfield. And then there's the house on the corner, which a flipper type person bought from Burlington, and he's been sitting on it for 3 years now, I think, or two and a half years. And he couldn't renovate it because it's in the flood zone. He had to raise the building here and spend the money.
Yeah.
So he was hoping to put, paint on it and turn the power on, and he found out he couldn't quite do that. And the building's only assessed at $50,000, I think.
Oh, bummer.
So under the federal and town rules, if you improve a property more than 50% of its assessed value, which is only adding $25,000 to that property, you have to renovate it for flood resiliency. And a lot of people stop doing work on that, so you get these zombie houses that the bank doesn't wanna touch, you get these vacated houses that the owner doesn't have money for, and they sit there and they basically rot. So this program is specific to get those houses out of there. The only interesting part about those two pieces, it's up against the town's property, which is the former Gamble property, and it's also up against the Huntley property, which is a big river shore property that gets almost up to the Grange property. So it's kind of from a collective
Could potentially become our parking
like
for.
a tax sales,
Exactly.
it does that kind of a thing. So the only real requirement, because it's really a FEMA initiated project, is for the select board to basically have a vote to apply. And then they take on the volunteer and working out all the funding as well as working with the landowners. And the town has just a few things to do, like identify the property and maybe hold a meeting here, that kind of stuff. So that's a short story, but it would be specific to what we all called before, about a month or two ago, North Hyde Park Gateway South.
Yeah.
What do we do about the entrance from the top? The Guyan Valley Hall Committee is working on the post office and all that stuff on the north end. But nobody's looking at the south end entrance to North Hyde Park, so. They are, they're gonna do signs or welcome signs, but nobody's looking at
Property.
the properties and the
Yeah.
unpainted buildings, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Scattered through there, or the stormwater, or.
And this would help spruce it up by eliminating some of this stuff.
Yeah, right now, there's no public access to the Guyan River. By permission, they use the mill property.
Yeah.
But they don't have public access there. If somebody wanted to walk a long way, you could actually have parking for the Grange all down the south end and walk your 800 feet, which is a little bit of a walk, but people might do that if there was a small parking area down there. So
Okay.
the resolution or select board vote is simply that, is to have a application go in and then see if they like the project. That's the first step. If they don't like it, we're out of that round. If they do like it, we'll have more information.
Oh, okay, so we just need a motion to submit this?
Yeah, so it's a resolution under the Flood Resilient Communities Fund
Okay,
at 100% grant and have those two properties put in the queue.
perfect.
Not forcing anybody, it's a volunteer, but we have to identify it as part of the grant application.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion for that. What he said. For the flood resilience.
moved.
Great.
So move.
Bill second?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstained?
No history on that, Matt.
Yeah, that's brand new.
Not a lot of history on that.
Okay, I said aye. I'm in.
Picking on you tonight.
I know,
Getting
he's
picked
fun
on tonight.
tonight.
Honesty's the
So
best
all work,
policy,
so-
I can take
I
it.
think
Can we get
so.
those back down?
Matt, can you pass the warrants to me?
Would you please put them in nice order for them?
So start signing this way then.
Jennifer, appreciate it. Okay, what's the next thing on the,
Minutes?
the minutes.
And the monthly memo from Jennifer, which had a couple things in there about activating the finance committee and trying to do
Yep.
some investments with or without Kim present, because she's the treasurer. Usually we do investments with the treasurer. I think that was her question to you. Do you want to keep the money in its current investment mode, or do you want to move it to 6 months a year or something?
I think we should be moving it.
I think we should be making something with the money we have.
But she would bring a recommendation to your next
What?
meeting if you wanted to see her, wanted to put that work into it.
Somebody
Yeah.
wild.
I think so. You want Jennifer to put that work into it, to bring that to the next meeting, so that we can
No.
look
Did
at
that
it.
thing go?
Oh,
Oh, I didn't say. Oh. but I
Oh.
just-
by the way, I really like her memos.
I do too.
She is-
That's a good start.
She is, very thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure, actually, I
Yes,
should just
you
tell
got
her, but.
It's the only thing that I got in my email, I mean, I didn't get on the agenda still.
Oh, you didn't? It was at the top.
Oh, I got the memo, that's it.
You gotta push the bottom button.
So should we wait for the treasurer or no? What's the policy? Do we have a policy on that, or is that?
No, usually investment
I
policy
like it.
includes everybody. We just don't, we have assistant town
There's no-
treasurer,
Yeah, right
Krista, who could be.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, okay.
It's
There's
not
no
me,
meeting
but
agenda,
it's
nothing.
usually the treasurer, but in her case, if we miss a month, we miss a few, maybe $1,000.
Yeah, exactly, right.
we have to figure that out over the next month. And I can figure out what to bring to you at your November
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, perfect.
That's why mine
Chris
sits on the
is
shelf.
involved with, she's in semi-conversation.
Oh, okay,
I get it
okay.
on my phone.
I gotta get mine on my
Okay,
phone. I still
where
have
are
it.
we here?
I have to.
We need to approve the minutes. I'm gonna have to abstain because I wasn't here.
I'll move we approve the minutes. It's because it's just the last one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed, abstaining? I am. So,
Oh, do we need to approve the warrants or no? No, we just sign them.
You should have a vote to approve
Yeah.
that one.
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the warrants.
I'll second.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposing? None? Okay. Thanks.
It's late.
So you probably heard about the internet and international attacks on the United States for businesses from Russia and China that are trying to
No, but I think we're gonna.
knock down government services last week. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh, no.
But it was on the news that a lot of municipal governments were being attacked and some of them didn't fare so well.
Oh,
Since 2019, the federal government has been studying ways that we're nationally weak in the internet stuff. We've taken a lot of these recommendations, but they came up with their report on what municipalities should be doing. We were actually doing a lot of them with Tech Group, which you've invested in over the last couple of years at the tune of $20,000 a year, trying to keep up malware and internet security.
Huh?
So just to let you read it from the federal level, it's not for tonight reading, but you might want to go to bed by it if you want to read it. It just give you some perspective on the national, and some of the, like I said, some of those things we're doing locally,
Yeah.
right? So you're already out there to sign this subrecipient agreement with North Hyde Park Fire for the truck.
Oh, okay, for the truck, yeah.
Sign the one for the water district, right?
Where's my paper? I wanna read that, right there.
This was written in '93.
So we're going to executive session for 2 seconds to talk about the papers that we say like executive session. If they're all positive, or if they're not fire details of that.
It's the whole thing, right? Yeah.
And come back in.
Yeah, we can do that. They close it, we shut off the TV, for the main. Come back for step outside or something, and we can wait in or something like that.
No, there's nothing with the second summit.
No, that's just a notice to
Yeah.
next, this
So how
Wednesday
long are
night,
we using the current bid?
tomorrow night, 8
The one
o'clock.
we got
And I
down.
just wanted to bring up
It's saying
to,
another 30
Jennifer,
years.
she talked to you
No, no.
about that, going up a different desk, and there was something about
There's 30
getting
years
the,
until it hits my record.
the funds, or she should find it in the
Well, until
budget,
it
if
hits your
there's money in
rec
there or
field.
something.
Yeah,
30 years.
yeah, that was.
You weren't
That's right.
there, so I
That's
couldn't
what
talk to you
I'm
about it,
telling
but,
Oh,
I
so it's 30
figured
years
it
till we
was
get to the
here.
rec field.
Yeah,
discuss
I'm
it.
gonna identify it.
Look,
So,
yeah, look how much.
if
I
we're
did
gonna-
ask her if
They
she
took out
checked
the
like
front.
the state website for the,
That
surplus
material
property.
was-
I've looked at some of the things that she does now, which is.
You probably.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know,
Oh.
that's, but again, that's what the board, so
So these
how
are-
deep
these are
is the
more
gravel,
sort
and
of
then when you just
adjustable
get.
I
Yeah,
saw
that's
that. I love this. That's what I
But I
have.
think
Stand up. Those
we
are
gotta
nice.
change it so that the town can sell the sand.
Special.
Yeah, we definitely.
You know,
Some
we get
things
down
go
to it's
without
just
telling.
sand, because they need that for concrete and stuff, we need to change the permit so that we can sell the sand, 'cause it's like,
And
I
that will
just have
never
to
happen.
step out so we
Yeah,
can-
yeah,
With the municipal,
So
that will
we're
never
gonna
happen.
get off the,
Good luck with that one. You better take that to Montpelier.
Okay, so
well, but why
let
not?
me get off the.
we're gonna go into executive session.
Personnel.
Bill Mullen
Personnel.
will do the same thing.
Yeah.
Cody, did you have something? I see you're online.